All right. What is up, everybody? Welcome back. Another Thursday night live stream on the channel. And tonight's live stream has morphed from many different things in my brain. So I thought I was going to do a bunch of blind flights tonight. I had all these different ideas over the last couple days. Pretty much settled on something earlier at rehearsal. And then all that went out the window. So as you saw on the thumbnail, I have some bottles to get into this evening. Some things that I didn't expect actually to be getting into, but I decided to stop on the at the store on the way home. I'm trying to get this mic to be situated. I stopped on the store at the store on the way home. I can't talk. I mean, 4.5 hours of sleep is not doing me any good right now. And I found this Remus Gatsby Reserve, and I was like, you know what? It's not cheap, but that's okay. We're gonna try this thing out. I also found this Pinhook 8-year, both of them completely unopened. I haven't even taken this thing out of the box. Got my knife here. There's a little thing I got to cut on the top. We're going to also take a look at a couple craft whiskeys. One in particular here is a rye. This is the Maryland Epic Reserve. So we'll check that out, courtesy of my friend Mark. Then we've got a Kings County private blend, which is a distillery I'm completely unfamiliar with. I believe out of New York. We'll check this out. And kind of the star of the show is going to be this Ezra Brooks 1970s edition, 15-year-old. And I've got a sample comparison for this one. So we just have a lot of stuff to get into. Should make for a really fun stream. And there's going to be opportunities to be nerdy, do side-by-sides, dive into some bottles, and also a quick blind flight at the end that's... because I've been running my mouth about calling out Elijah Craig barrel-proof batches, we're going to see if I can actually even get close on 4 of those. All right, so let me check the chat real quick. I do need to get the giveaway stuff up here in just a second. Why not just do it right now, actually? Giveaway entry for a sample pack, including... let's do we'll call it 1970s Old Ezra 15. There we go. Save this. Get this up on the screen. So as you make your way in here, guys, please hit that like button. Let's get some more folks hanging out tonight. I put my thumbnail up about an hour ago, so I think we're probably going to be short on folks in the beginning. More will trickle in as the night gets going here. Okay. So we got JG in here. What is up, Jay? I see Jeff Perkins. Cheers to you, man. And I got to get something in my glass, guys. So what are we going to start with? Let's start with this. I'm going to go back to this one. This is Still Austin Bottled in Bond, the High Rye, a bottle that I tasted last week. And I just want to say at the beginning of this stream, number one, doing some damage on this. Yes, I've sampled it out, but also I'm doing some damage on it. But I'm telling you guys, if you see this, if you're in Texas or wherever this is being distributed, this bottle, I know it's $80. It is worth every bit of $80. High Rye, bottled in bond, Still Austin from this fall. Fantastic stuff. I was texting Jeb, who may or may not be in here in the live chat, was texting Jeb the other night. We were talking about it. Just a ridiculously good bottle, especially from a craft distillery. All right, Tom Snyder, good to see you, man. Joe the Sample Guy, Joe Dickinson, Paul P. Thanks for being here, guys. John Cloud. Everybody hit that like button on your way in, please. Let's get some more folks in here. Zach Butler, what is up? Zach, I think your package probably arrived today. Great segue. Anybody who was waiting on a package from me, all of those should be in at your doorstep as of right now, except for Toshi. Toshi is in California, and it's going to take an extra day. So Toshi's Magnus Cigar Blend from last week that he won actually was on the Patreon. It wasn't on the stream. That's going to be there tomorrow. So everybody else should be taken care of. All the samples, everything. Scott, Ryan, can't remember who else was on the receiving end of that stuff. So there we go. Scott got his. Zach got his. Awesome. And got that Stag 23A on the way. Thank you, Zach. I'm excited to get into that sample. You know what? I'm going to change the music. We're just going to go here. We can just get a little more upbeat. 4.5 hours of sleep. I'm dragging. I know I'm going to wake up sometime in this stream. I'll wake up. But right now I'm dragging. Anyways, cheers, guys. Let me know what you're sipping on this evening as we get into a lot of these pours. Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. I really think it's going to be a fun stream. So here we go. Cheers. All right. Now, let's talk about the sample giveaway for this evening. So tonight, like I said, what I'm going to be tasting, everything you see on the table, Remus Gatsby. We're going to compare this to batch number 1. I have a sample of that still from Amy, I believe. The Pinhook, that's two samples. 3 is the old Ezra from the 1970s. Incredible. So 1, 2, 3. Epic Rye is going to be number 4. Kings County is going to be number 5. And I will round out the rest of that sample pack with the Still Austin Bottled and Bond number 6. And then I'll throw a few bonus samples in there. Maybe the 4-Gate Kelvin 60, some stuff like that. But basically, the 2 sample winners of the night are going to taste all of the stuff that I drink this evening, not including what's in sample bottles because I obviously don't have enough of that to go around. But the real star of the show, which we will get to later in the stream, of course, this Ezra 15. Unreal. Unreal stuff. All right, so I've got the Super Chat tracker up on my screen. Of course, if you want to go PayPal or Venmo, go direct and skip that 30% YouTube cut. Always appreciate it on my end, but totally unnecessary. I've got the Venmo up as well, and I see Zach Butler's going to be the first one to jump in on that. So thank you, Zach. That's 3 entries, $15 Super Chat. He says, let's go for 2. Cheers, man. Thank you for that. Roy R., what is up, man? Scott says, just picked up a Russell's Reserve store pick 10-year Camp Nelson. Pretty good. I haven't really tasted any recent Russell's picks. Like, I see a lot of stuff coming out that's 8 years old now. 8, 9, 10 is probably the most that I've seen in terms of these recent releases. And even then, I'm hard-pressed to even think of one off the top of my head. So I'm glad you found a 10-year. That's good news. Tim Tam says, Still Austin's coming to Michigan next month. First time in the state. Is the rye the one? Yes. I think Nancy blends most of their stuff. I can't confirm that, but the rye, she definitely said she blended that. I believe she blended this high rye bottled and bond bourbon as well. And again, I really like that low proof rye. I thought it was great. Really candy sweet, Smarties flavors. A totally different take on rye, and especially from Texas, not what you expect, but, you know, different is good. It's also very drinkable, very crushable. And as I'm tasting this Still Austin, the high rye, I'm just reminded of MGP. Bourbon Drop says a local store by me had a 10. I missed out. Well, not the end of the world, but still a little rarer these days to find that. Okay, first thing that we're going to taste this evening, we're going to just start easy, very relaxed, very chill. We're going to go to this Maryland Epic Rye as we wait for some more folks to get in here tonight. And I'll tell you why I have this bottle, because I don't know that there's any distribution here in Ohio for this, although there could be, and maybe I'm just not aware of it. One of the members of the orchestra that I play in here in Columbus, his name is Mark. Mark is, he seems to be good friends with somebody who is maybe a co-founder or a co-owner. I don't know exactly the relationship. Somebody from this distillery, which is this Maryland Epic Reserve, but the actual distillery, I think, is called, it says Baltimore Spirits Company. All right, so Mark is friends with somebody over there. They offered to send this bottle to the channel for me to check out, do a review here. Then I'm going to pass this bottle off to Mark. So that's what we're going to do right now. This is a 4+ year rye. It is at 100 proof, and it's considered their reserve. So I think this is maybe an upgrade from perhaps a standard offering that they have. But 100 proof, 4 year, Maryland, I believe, grown and distilled. rye. Let's see. It is pot distilled, small batches, distilled, aged, and bottled. It doesn't say anything about the grains exactly, but I feel like this is almost like one of those grain to glass type operations, even if it's not exactly like their farm. I think it is at least locally sourced. I'm not exactly sure. What's up, Will Molnar? And Joe, what's up, guys? So just quickly getting into this Maryland Epic Rye as we wait for some more folks to get in here. Let's see what we get on the nose. Huh. So if you're not a craft whiskey lover, this is not exactly going to be your thing. This does have a little bit of that farminess to it. To me, it's probably coming from the pot still, I would say. It has that like thick, it almost smells viscous. It smells a little farmy. I feel like that's a pot still thing. I'm reminded of Cream of Kentucky Bottled and Bond Rye, although not as farmy as that. The High Plains Rye, probably not as crafty as that either, but close. It has a little bit of that combination of malted milk ball, lemon that I get on some of these craft ryes. But this also has enough of an herbal tint to it and like a white pepper, almost effervescence, almost Alka-Seltzer kind of note on it, that it kind of lifts it up a little bit. And whereas I think crafty, farmy notes are on the darker side of the spectrum, they kind of bog whiskeys down and they make them funky and syrupy and heavy. This has like an effervescence and that it lifts it up, at least on the nose so far, to make it not feel so one-dimensional. So I'm getting very bright notes from that Alka-Seltzer type thing, and I'm also getting super farmy, hay, earthy kind of notes. Palate's really nice. And a lot of coffee on the palate. So I didn't see this going that direction, but I like that it is. It's almost like Alka-Seltzer, 7-Up, plus coffee on the palate. Very spritzy, very lively, but it's just coffee. It's like almost like a film in your mouth that you're left with afterwards. Weird. So I think that this rye, if you're a craft whiskey lover, of course, I think you're going to really dig this. But I also think this could rope some traditional rye whiskey lovers like Kentucky ryes or even MGP ryes. I think it could take some of those people and convert them, if they aren't already, into at least testing out craft whiskeys, and trying to get into that. This is an interesting one. When I first smelled this, I've taken one sip of this before. I thought like, oh man, I might not like this so much. It feels crafty to me. It feels like it's going to be just more of that kind of profile. I'm pleasantly surprised by this. It's not my favorite, but I think for the style, it's very good. And I think the most, the best part about this whiskey, flavor profile is going to be subjective, but the finish is super, super long. And that's important for a 100 proof craft rye to have a standout quality. That would be the standout quality for me on this whiskey. So I don't know if anybody out there has tried this Maryland Epic Reserve 100 proof. This whiskey is over 4 years old, it says. Let me know whether you're watching this live or watching the replay. Drop me a comment or say something in the live chat right now. I'd be curious if you've tried this one. All right, I got to turn my notifications off. I'm getting things dinging in my ears. Okay, there we go. All right, guys, we're getting some more people in here now. This is great. 56 in here. Please hit that like button on your way in. Just tasting a little craft whiskey here at the beginning of the stream. And not a bad whiskey at all, this Maryland Epic 4-year, although I am curious on the price point, and I think that's going to be an important factor, although because it is craft whiskey, I think there's a little more leeway on that. Epic Rye Whiskey from Baltimore Spirits Company. Oh, maybe this isn't like a special limited edition or like special bottling or anything like that. Maybe this is just the standard thing. Yeah. Looks like it's around $60. I truthfully didn't expect that. I thought this would be over 60. So, okay. I think it's a very fair price for the whiskey, considering that it's a craft whiskey. It's a rye, which is going to be a little more expensive. Yeah, cool. Cool. Not totally up my alley, but if I was outside, like this is like an outdoor fall whiskey. I would have to be outside to want to drink this. If I'm around a fire, I would drink this whiskey for sure. Yeah, cool. Bourbon Drop saw one while passing through Crofton, Maryland. Thought the one 2 years old, left it on the shelf. Yeah, this 4-year is I would not hesitate. What's up, Brian? Lurking there. And Hendo jumping in with the super chat. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Got you in for 2. Okay, let's put this off to the side. And now let's get into some more whiskey here. I think what we're going to do next is we're going to get into the Remus Gatsby. So here's the box, by the way, for that old Ezra that we're going to get into. Well, we'll talk about the date here in a second. But put this on the floor for now and bring it back when we get into that bottle. All right, so Remus Gatsby Reserve. They have skimped out on the box these days. The old box, I've got one up on this shelf right here for... what was it called before Gatsby Reserve? The Bottled and Bond. Volstead. The Remus Volstead box was the same the last time they released this Gatsby Reserve. It has that fold-out thing. It's just a cool-looking box. This year they have skimped out, and they've gone for just kind of this standard presentation. And honestly, at this point, I don't think the box is even worth it. I don't know. I think the one last year had that fold-out box, right? Maybe I'm wrong. But either way, I don't think this box is even needed. It's a $250 bottle with a cheap cardboard box. If I'm going to go $250 on something and it's going to actually be presented like a limited edition, present it like a limited edition or just leave the tricks at home, you know? That's the way I feel about it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being old and crotchety. Yeah, this box is going to go in the garbage. It's not going to go on the shelf, I don't think. The Knob Creek 18 box from the first batch, that one's fine because it's actually a wooden box. This is just cardboard, so we don't need that. And like I said a few minutes ago, I've actually got a sample of batch 1 with me. Some leftover from Amy. She sent it to me a little while back. So I am going to be curious to see what that comparison is like between the two batches. Oh, weird shrink wrap issue here on the... What the hell? Oh, man, this totally came apart. Hang on a sec, guys. Not a great packaging here by Ross and Squibb. This little plastic piece that's caught up within this wrap. This actually goes on the cork, but everything got caught up and like almost like vacuum sealed together or something. Yeah. Well, I guess that's not going to work anymore. So, okay, there we go. Okay, here we go. I was way behind on the chat. Hendo says, are you going to pick up that? Yeah, the 10,000. You guys see this? The 25-year Eagle Rare that's being released. I think 200 bottles, $10,000 a piece. Someone tagged Dan Like, I think, in the Bourbon Junkies Facebook page. Asked him if he was going to be picking it up. You got to be balling out of control to get a Eagle Rare 25. Oh, wow. So here we go. What we have here, Remis Gatsby. Let's see if I can get the secondary camera going. Boom, look at that. Remis Gatsby. Cask strength is 98.1 proof this year, so it's still a super low cask strength. I have to imagine that these barrels were probably in the lower part of the rick houses. 98.1 last year was 97.8, so a 0.3 difference. At least they're consistent, if nothing else. Same age, 15 years. One of the best bottle designs in the market, in my opinion. Although the box, yeah. Let's see. Who else was talking about the box? Oh, there we go. Guy says the new box is trash. It does feel super cheap. Andrew says the box this year is ultra lame. Last year's was lame, but at least intriguing. I don't know. If last year's was the fold-out box, I love that box. The Volstead had that too. Aaron, it does still have the nice heavy cork. Although mine had an issue with that plastic piece coming off or something. Yeah, Colt 45. Honestly, though, I don't mind them just bailing on the packaging. Although it does kind of suck that the first year had it and the subsequent years don't. But the first year was also, I believe it was like some anniversary for Knob Creek, so maybe they could make that excuse. Brian says just had that a few days ago, referencing the Pinhook, so we'll do that probably next, I would imagine. But first, Remus Gatsby, 98.1 proof. Obviously a fresh crack here, but this whiskey's 15 years old, so it's been sitting in a barrel for long enough that I think we don't need to let this thing air out too much longer in the glass before we get into it. Although, sure enough, somebody in the comments is going to say, well, it was just a neck pour. That's okay. All right. Whew. Well, it certainly smells very good. We'll start with that. Wow. Okay. Aaron says low cask strength is what makes it special. I agree. It is definitely a unique quality. Scott says local store still has last year's on the shelf for $250. Wow. I would have thought that last year's would have kind of flown away, just given that it was a new release. Guys, just a quick reminder, please hit that like button on the way in. Let's try to get up to 90 or 100 tonight. That would be awesome. Joe says we had Knob Creek 18 at Costco here in Indy for $145 this week. That's very cheap. I would probably have bought 2 of them because I like this year's release quite a bit. Tim Tam, I think at this point, Booker's has to keep the box. I think it's such a traditional thing over the last, almost 30 years or 30 years maybe at this point? No, 40. Like 83, 84? Was that when it was? Maybe even earlier. So at least 40 years maybe of Booker's boxes. I don't think that's going to go anytime soon. All right. So everything that I talk about relative to this Remus Gatsby Reserve, I want to frame all of it first by saying whatever notes I discuss, please assume what the base notes are. So what I mean is, like, right now what we're talking about is really old MGP. Some people out there may have never tasted MGP above 6, 8, maybe 10 years old, because a lot of those bottles are either super rare, cost prohibitive, insert, limiting factor here. But I think even if you've only tasted stuff, let's say around 8 years old, you still have an idea of what that MGP profile is. You have an idea of the spice components, but in particular, you have an idea of like the dark fruit qualities of the whiskey. So let's just start with that as a base, as a point of reference for this, because there are some things in this whiskey that are very unique on top of those standard MGP notes, even though they are very old standard MGP notes. All right. So the first thing I'm getting on this is a really interesting combination of nuttiness, just sickeningly sweet dark fruits in a great way. Not like bullcrap finished whiskey sweet, but just extremely dense, sweet, rich, dark fruits. But this nuttiness is there, this almond nuttiness. And actually in a blind flight last week or the week before, I thought this was a Jim Beam product, the first batch. If that tells you anything about this. It does have a strong nutty component to it. Almost in the way of like an Armagnac. If you guys have had that, I think that's referred to as Rancio, R-A-N-C-I-O. It's kind of like nutty thing. This almost has Armagnac qualities to it. And the proof point's right too for that. A lot of these cask strength Armagnacs come out around 100 proof. But there's also a spicy, savory component to this whiskey. On the savory side of things, I'm trying to pin this down what it is. I mean, you could call it some sort of earthiness. I can't quite get there. But this is crazy. It's a super, super dark whiskey. And I love the nose on it. At first, it felt like it wasn't wanting to come out of the glass. I still think that's the case. I still think this thing is a little bit tame. I do wish it blossomed a bit more. But anyways, let's go in for the palate here and see what we get. Cheers. I think I really like this whiskey. Wow. Now, I am a little dehydrated today. And when I'm dehydrated, whiskey proof hits higher for me because I don't have as much saliva in my mouth. I know that sounds kind of gross and specific, but it's something that I know about myself. So that hit hotter than I expected it to and had a longer finish than I expected it to. So if everything tonight has a long finish for me, just know that that's probably me, not the whiskeys. So yeah, the nose on this is kind of underwhelming. It shows its age. It shows some depth to it. It shows complexity, but there's just not enough there for me in the glass. So in my opinion, I would throw this in something that's a little smaller of a glass to concentrate that a bit more, like one of those mini Glens or something else. I think that would be a great way to taste this one. Yeah, just not a lot there. All right, but palate again. This time chocolate. In addition to just how many dark fruit notes there are in this whiskey, like plum, like blackberry, very juicy. A little chocolate on the back end of that too. So that's nice. Now I do want to compare it to last year because as of right now, as I taste this, SRP on this bottle is $250. And the real question is whether or not this is worth $250. I like that whole theory of $10 per year when you start getting into ultra-aged whiskeys. 10 years, 12 years and up. 10 per year at that point is not terrible. And it also depends on the distillery and everything like that. But for this, you know, we're closer to $20 per year, and I don't like that so much. So that's going to be the real question. Is this worth it? And also, how does it compare to last year? Because last year, for me, to my memory, it had some of the same issues where it just felt a little under proof. So let's see. Let that sit for just a second. Let me check the chat. Andrew says, local stores by me still have the first release. I could go buy 6 tomorrow, $2.30 a piece. Interesting that they're collecting dust. Wow. The one that I wish would collect dust was the Volstead. The Remus Volstead is one of my favorite bottles I've ever had. And it's not because it's a perfect whiskey. It's just because the flavor profile to me is so incredibly good. And I think Matt Porter loved it too. I believe I had sent him a sample. Or maybe someone else did. But either way. Alex. So, guys, Alex Halverson, who's in the chat right now, he is the one who sent me along this Kings County. So thank you, Alex, for doing that. This is his private blend with some buddies, I believe. It might be the first private blend that they ever did at Kings County like this. Usually, I believe they're single barrels, although fact check me on that, please. Alex also sent the remainder, again, thank you, dude, of his 1977 Old Ezra 15-year. This is the sample, which is the reason I pulled the trigger on buying this bottle. And so we will talk about some date things between these. Obviously, in tonight's giveaway, there will be 2 sample winners for the stuff that I'm drinking this evening, each of those including 1 ounce of this 1970s old Ezra 15. But we'll talk about some of the date discrepancies on these things and when I think they came from and where I think they're sourced from. I've kind of gone through this process on my own already. I actually filmed a review video a day or two ago, and it just didn't turn out well, so I can't release it. So that's why tonight we're going to get into the old Ezra 15, and we're going to tackle that tonight. I think it's a better venue than trying to do this on a video. Aaron, yeah, okay, the 30th anniversary of Knob Creek last year. Derek says, start prepping the tents for to camp out for Booker's 40th. Have they done? They haven't done 35th yet, have they? Although you're right. Should probably start now. What's up, Amy? Good to see you. Aaron says, last year's was effervescent. Curious if this one has that same quality. Let's find out here in just a sec. JG, come on, man. Hey, Richie, what's up, dude? Ben H, how does it compare to a lower proof Rebecca Creek 16? Ben, great question. I actually have a sample of one of those. So I can do this comparison here in just a second. Thanks for suggesting that. I forgot I had this sample from Keith Thompson. Thank you, Keith. Which, by the way, guys, the Rebecca Creek 16 that Keith sent me, he sent a full bottle, if you remember, like a month or two ago. This thing is so good, and you can see just how good it is. I had to get a backup, too. I had to go hunt down a backup of one of these. I mean, and I paid way too much money for it, but this 127.7 proof, barrel 21, stupid good. Christine Vasco, what is up? And Mark is here. Hello, hello, you two. JG says whiskey cheers. Thank you for the super chat, Jay. Get you into the giveaway for one. All right. So first, a comparison between Remus Gatsby Reserve Batch 1 and Batch 2. So on your right is going to be Batch 2, 2023 release. And on your left is going to be Batch 1. Let's see. Okay. So on the nose, they are both, I would say, equally muted on the nose. I think low-proof MGP just doesn't, like this low-proof cast strength stuff doesn't do well on the nose. I think that's just, it's just the kind of profile that needs more ethanol in the mix to kick it out and get it out of the glass. So, you know, I think it's just a feature of the whiskey. The main difference I'm finding on the nose between the two is that Batch 1 seems to be a little bit oakier and actually more tobacco forward. Like it shows its age more. It also feels a little bit drier on the nose. Whereas this Batch 2, again, I know it's a fresh crack, but it feels fresher, like fresh, juicy, dark fruit notes. It doesn't feel quite as aged and tired, I guess, as the Batch 1. Yeah. Hey-o. All right, let's taste Batch 1. Okay. Batch 1 really fell off on the palate. Like, there was a little punch at the beginning. Totally fell off, and the finish is just not even there. I remember this now. I'm, like, having flashbacks to tasting this thing. Okay, Batch 2. I think Batch 2 is probably going to be my preference between these two, and that's good news, actually. Because I feel like this release might be a little bit larger, because I just walked into a store today and this was sitting there. That kind of stuff doesn't typically happen here in Ohio. Usually that stuff is gone. So I don't know if it was because of the disinterest in Batch 1, or if there maybe is more distribution, more quantity of this release. I have no idea. But this Batch 2 just feels fresher. It feels, because of the fresher blackberry plum notes, there's more presence to it overall. Yeah, batch 1. Definitely drier. Definitely more... I hate to say this. It, just like I said in the blind flight last week, this reminds me of Jim Beam, batch 1. It's just nutty, and it has that Rick House tobacco smell that old Jim Beam products have in it. It's a tough one in a blind. It's just not there on the palate. Wow. So I didn't expect the difference between these two to be so stark. Way more presence on the palate, batch 2. So if you are looking to spend the $250 to pick up one of these bottles, if you know that you like old MGP, you don't mind that it's a low cask strength, you know, let's include all of those factors. I still think $250 is too much for this. I would much prefer to see this bottle between $150 and $180. I think that makes sense in the market. I think it makes sense on the quality of the whiskey. Considering the cask strength is low, up to $200, that seems like a high point for me on this bottle. $250 feels like a money grab. Feels like you're paying for this, which is nothing. It's just cardboard. And let's be honest, this is probably like $10 of the cost, right? So let's get rid of the box and save a little bit of money on the bottle. I like the whiskey. I think it's good. I think proof hounds are not going to dig this, even though it's old and it has old whiskey notes. If people require 110, 120 proof to be happy, and they think, oh, well, let's try something new, let's just splurge on this old bottle, I don't think they're going to like it, because I just think it's not going to hit them the way that they want it to. So this is for a particular kind of consumer. Regardless of who it's for, even if you have a soft spot for it, it's still overpriced. Should that prohibit you from buying it? Probably not if you like to collect these old whiskey releases. I'm not mad that I have it. $250 is not cheap, but it's not, you know, there are worse things you could do with that money in the world of whiskey right now. Derek, saving a batch 1. Honestly, dude, I might trade that one away. I've got to be honest with you. Bourbon Drop says they charge $120 for Remus Repeal. Nowadays, I value those things like 70 to 80 tops, because I don't think they've been as good. But batch 5, in my mind, I would pay up to $150 for batch 5, because I thought that was very, very good whiskey. Like, totally out, I always say this wrong, outkicked its coverage. Yeah, I think Remus Repeal is kind of going down the tubes, but Remis Gatsby at twice the price seems to be increasing in quality, although I hope next year we don't see a price increase on this one. Andrew, you're paying for the glass. Certainly the glass, the presentation, even outside the box, you're right. And yeah, the cork is like, this thing is substantial. You can knock someone out. Got the first release at $270 and immediately regretted it, and I don't blame you for that. It's like the first release, to me, the profile only works at a higher proof. This second release, the profile actually works at the given proof. I just think it's too expensive. But I will be curious to see what other people say about this if they have the chance to do the side-by-side. Because right now, I mean, I have no reservations about this. I think Batch 2 is just a clear winner across the board. So if I do find someone that says they like Batch 1 more, I want to like see what their reasoning would be. Mark says, by the way, we have Batch 2 sitting here. That's a great way of putting it, Mark. Man. Mark Vasco, guys, just has some wisdom. He just and Mark, you're such a calm human, and I love being around you because you bring things to like a point of stasis. You bring a room to that point, and I love that. And so I just feel like sometimes when I'm around Mark, he'll just say something and you're like, hell yeah. And this is one of those moments. I think people are afraid they're going to pay $250 for a great $150 whiskey. That's like a very optimistic way of saying that too. So I'm writing this. I'm going to take a picture of it actually, because I want to use that phrase later. All right. Nice one. Mark also said earlier that that was the problem with Batch 1. Actually blended it with Repeal Batch 7 to fix the finish issue. That's a good idea. And I think a lot of these MGP whiskeys blend fairly easily together. Like anytime I've ever sat down and like just blended together some random MGP bottlings, I feel like they do well more often than those kinds of bottles from other distilleries when I'm messing around with that. For what it's worth. Excuse me. Oh, James Lay, what is up, man? I saw you jumped in here. And Travis. Cheers, guys. Scott with a hot take. I'm not paying $250 for a 90 proof anything. I love it. Derek says Remus Gatsby used to have the stuff they're putting in Gatsby in it. Thought Gatsby was going to be another cool one time. I also thought that, Derek, which is why I was kind of okay with it, you know, being like, oh, well, it didn't work out, but maybe next year they'll put out a 13-year 110 proof, you know, whatever the stats would be. But yeah, you're right. They are diluting the repeal reserve for this line and not really for much additional benefit, because the best part, like what this could do for the repeal line, is add depth at a higher proof and kind of round this thing out. Because frankly, I think this release could actually use some younger, higher proof whiskey in the mix, and nobody complain about it. I think it would only make it better. Yeah. Christine says, yeah, he has to balance my crazy. That's how I feel with Sarah. Sarah has to balance my crazy. I'm with you, Christine. Andrew. Andrew, I don't know where I've heard this before, man. I'm not mad. I'm not mad that I have this. And I actually have an extra box for my Remus Volstead, because up on this shelf behind all these bottles is the box, but there's no Volstead bottle in there because I killed it. I have one backup in my basement, but I just have this box sitting up there empty. So I'm going to put this in there, even though this is for the Gatsby, because I like that box better. And yeah, this is just, it looks like you're in Gotham City. Come on. That Art Deco bottle shape is so cool. All right. So yeah, Remis Gatsby batch 2. That is another 1 ounce sample of tonight's giveaway. So I've tasted the Epic Rye. I've tasted that Gatsby. Those are going to both be in the giveaway. The Still Austin High Rye that I opened the stream with, that I can't get enough of. Again, for those of you who were not here at the beginning of the stream, I know I tasted this last week, but I just wanted to shout it out again. After tasting this a few more times since then, I was texting Jeb, who's usually in the chat. We were texting about this the other night. This is an outstanding $80 bottle. I know that's expensive for craft whiskey. This thing hits so far above its just its age, I guess. I don't want to say its price point. It's right on the price point, but it's very good stuff. So anyways, every $5 super chat here or in the Venmo PayPal, going to get you a chance to enter an 8 to 10 pour sample pack, including all this stuff, as well as this old Ezra 15 from the 1970s. So there we go. Keep it moving. I think so far we've just got 6 entries in tonight's giveaway, so very good odds so far. Oh, no. I missed a few here. They didn't pop up on my phone. Jeff Perkins in for 2. Thank you, Jeff. $10 super chat for Jeff. And we got Andrew Surfling in for 4. Thank you, guys. Jeff says, cheers. And Andrew says, any chance we could get a video of a full whiskey collection tour? Maybe. It's so spread out around my house. Whenever I start filming videos like that, I get so in my head about trying to produce them well, and then I never release them, or I never end up finishing. But maybe, Andrew. One time, like, when I first started the channel, I set up a camera. Like, I had a handheld camera with a really long cable going to my computer as like a secondary angle, and I was just showing people around the room, which is like, I mean, that's something I could do again, but there's a lot of my whiskey in the basement with the bunker and with 2 other shelves down there that's full of stuff that I just don't touch. Derek says, making me very excited to try it now. I've loved the regular and cast strength still. Derek, I mean, to me, this thing blows them both out of the water, even though it's lower proof than the cast strength. I can't believe it. Travis, Still Austin, High Rye, or Peerless? Probably Still Austin for me, but that's an excellent question. Where's the Peerless? Let's see. Where is the Peerless? I'll do that comparison very quickly. And this is now a blend of batch 1 and batch 2 Remus Gatsby, so let's let that marry for a second. I shouldn't have done that. I forgot I poured the Rebecca Creek. But that's okay. I don't even need it for the comparison. What is Aaron saying here? Same all over the industry. When was the last time you saw a Knob Creek store pick older than 10 years? But 3 17-year Hardens Creek releases this year. All great. Yeah, I agree. And you know what, though? Like, with the Knob Creek stuff, there's pretty decent production and distribution of those products. Knob Creek 18, the place that I went today, Arena Wine and Spirits here in Columbus, they said they got 20 cases of Knob Creek 18. And I don't know if they were exaggerating that number. That seems like a very high number. And they are a big store, but they're like, this is probably going to be sitting here for a week or two. I couldn't believe that. So the fact that Beam suddenly coming out with all this ultra-aged whiskey, and I don't think they would be doing that unless they could keep it up in the future, you know? That bodes well, and I like ultra-aged Jim Beam. I think the 18 Knob Creek is a little rough around the edges, as is the 12. The 15's not that great. But the Hardens Creek are some superior blends. So I don't hate that they're premiumizing their products, because they're also still keeping those products at a pretty affordable price, pretty reasonable price, and with good distribution. Okay. Peerless High Rye really quickly. Christine says we had 5 cases of Knob Creek 18 up by us. Yeah, I mean, this stuff is coming in hot. Joe says that fits into the story I heard earlier this year that the 2023 Knob Creek 12 has a ton of older than 12-year-old bourbon in it. They just have too much. I mean, what a problem to have, though, Joe. Jeez. And I wouldn't mind. I mean, we all probably want to see a cast strength 18 or even a cast strength 15. Hell, whatever it is, we would love to see that. I'll just take more cast strength 12, to be honest, and throw a little splash of 15 in there, 14, whatever. But I would love to just see anything else like that. But regardless, I like the fact that we just saw a huge drop of 18. The only problem is that the 18 is $170. It's not a good thing for the average consumer to be able to try something like that. So, I don't know. Find a happy middle ground and release that. All right, real quick, Travis asked, Peerless High Rye or Still Austin High Rye. The Peerless has a proof advantage of 10 points. And here's the Still Austin. Very different profiles. I mean, I thought the Still Austin was pretty dark for what it is. But I go to the Peerless now, and the Peerless is very dark. The Peerless, the only knock I have on this is there's a weird cardboard note in there. It's the only the only tasting note that I don't like in it is this cardboard thing. It's pretty prominent, but the rest of it is all like berries. Just tons of berry notes. Root beer. I think I've called root beer on this one before. Solid. Now back to the Still Austin. Still Austin is brighter. It's more, it does smell a little younger, even though they're both probably very young products. In comparison, the Still Austin has kind of a raw wood note to it, but I didn't notice that on its own. I think that's just a testament to how dark the Peerless is. Peerless wins the side-by-side. Big ginger notes in the Still Austin High Rye right now. So Peerless wins that side-by-side, but the price of these should be a factor. I think the Peerless is a $30 to $40 more, maybe. Somebody check me on that. The SRP of Peerless High Rye Bourbon. Can't remember, but the other one's 80, Still Austin. But this doesn't detract from my love for the Still Austin High Rye, let's say. Alex says, going to bounce out here in about 5. I'll catch the recap. Thanks, Alex. Sorry that I'm taking so long to get to that bottle. Travis says 50-ish more than Still Austin. Man, that's, yeah. I mean, it is good. I don't think Peerless High Rye is worth that just as a standalone observation. I don't think it's worth the, like, 120 or whatever it is. But I still think it's a great whiskey. Oh, Still Austin High Rye has, that's what it is. Unsmoked cigarettes. If you ever just open up a pack of cigarettes and smell it, that kind of stale note. I said it might have a little raw wood to it in the side-by-side because the Peerless is so dark. It's not raw wood. It's unsmoked cigarettes, which is a note that I've gotten on a few other whiskeys before. Travis jumping in the giveaway. Thank you, man. In for 2. And he says, maybe my 15th submission will be my lucky number, or at least it goes to funding a new horsey top for you. Thanks, man. Fingers crossed, as always. Tyler Smith jumping in for 2. Get you in here, Tyler. And he says, Gatsby, cheers. Cheers, man. Okay. Andrew Surfling. Yes, Virginia Slim 100 is my favorite. Oh, is Matt Porter in here? Big Ginger Notes was my nickname back in 3rd grade. Oh, what's up, man? Nice of you to stop by, Matt. Matt Porter, the one that took my time a few weeks ago, my Thursday slot, and didn't use it, huh? Huh? I'm just kidding. Wow, Tony B says Peerless High Rye here is $148. Yeesh. Now, it's definitely not a $148 bottle. Tim Tam asks, if the Gatsby is the Ross and Squibb flagship bottle, where can you find older MGP or superior MGP? Please, others in the chat weigh in on this, what you think. For me, when I'm thinking of superior MGP at around that age, that's going to be really hard to find consistently. I don't even think you can find that consistently. But for instance, when you just see these projects dropping, these one-off things, or maybe it's going to happen again, but for now it's a one-off. The Rebecca Creek 16s of the world, you know, just random drops from independent bottlers like that, NDPs. That's where we have to look for that stuff. And the unfortunate part is, like, the Rebecca Creek, I think, was only distributed in Texas. So then you're geographically limited. But I don't think there is a consistent solution to, like, you know, how can I find 12 to 16-year MGP at a higher proof that's a better blend? I don't think that's even realistic, unfortunately. I think it's more just luck of the draw or paying up on secondary for that kind of a thing. Travis, I have no idea. We'll figure that out. Yeah, Amy says, rest in peace, Old Scout from 6 to 10 to 8 years ago. 6 to 8 to 10. A little dyslexia hit me there. Great, affordable, age-stated MGP. New stuff, not as good. No, not at all. Okay, so here's the batch 1, batch 2 Gatsby 50-50 blend. That's actually pretty good. That blend, whoever out there has batch 1 and batch 2 to make it, I don't know. That blend actually extended the finish of both batches in a really nice way. Big fruit notes from batch 2, but this weird dry spice type thing from batch 1. So, for what it's worth. And now this is just a quick check-in on a Rebecca Creek 102.3. Single barrel, so it's like 5 proof points higher, 1 extra year of aging, but pretty darn close to the Gatsby stats. And I can't remember who asked for this comparison earlier, but here it is. The nose is actually still shy on this one, just like the Gatsby. There's a lot less dark fruit here. There's not as much of that dark fruit note. This is a little more spicy. Yeah, this is more of just a peppery kind of nose to it. A lot of barrel spice on this. Huh. Palate has kind of a weird chemical note to it, but these are all single barrels, so keep that in mind. I've gotten this note on MGP before. I don't love it. It's just a little rubbery and kind of just chemical rubber note. I actually like the Gatsby more on this one. So this is a single barrel. Keep that in mind. I like Gatsby Batch 2 over this Rebecca Creek 102.3. Yeah, that's not my thing. There's just it just tastes almost tainted to me. Which I picked up on my Magnus when I did it blind in Buffalo on that Whiskey Ware episode a few episodes ago. And I got that kind of chemical note from it. This is the same the same chemical note that I got on that. I don't understand. Speaking of which, yes, I know I need to release some more reviews, but I am trying to be consistent on Whiskey Ware and put one out a week, and I've done a pretty good job for the last 7 episodes. So I know, guys, Whiskey Ware is not everybody's thing. I'm not going to stop doing it because it doesn't get a lot of views. I don't care. It's just fun for me. But if you haven't checked out the Whiskey Ware series, things are kind of changing. I'm figuring things out a little bit better, but having fun with it. It's been a blast. So, go check them out. They're 3 to 6 minutes each. It's a quick watch. Shameless plug. Why not? Another shameless plug. Please hit that like button. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Scott, is that you in Venmo, Randy? I wanted to check in with you before I write this down. Crypto Whiskey says, I get that rubber note sometimes on bottles with synthetic corks. Huh. Christine says, you can do a Whiskey Ware. Christine, part of the fun of that series is for moments like that. Like, the next time I'm up around those parts, if I could stop by, obviously, and say hello and hang out. But if we did a Whiskey Ware, like, that would be so fun, right? It's from your collection. No idea what you would pour. That is like the ultimate representation of what I wanted to do with that series. Okay, Scott, I just want to make sure. Thanks, man. So, anyways, guys, $50 super chat from Scott in the old Venmo. Thank you, Scott. That's a substantial super chat, man. So I really appreciate it. He says that Elijah Craig 923 sample was very good. Still waiting on it to drop here so I can stock up on it. Thanks. If I see C923, I am going to buy 2 of them, but it's not because I love it. It's because I think it has a great palate, and I still stand by the fact that I don't like the nose. I don't think it's a great whiskey. I think it's a very good whiskey. But I do think for modern Elijah Craig barrel proof, it's a nice thing to have on hand. I am going to, in the next week or two, probably on a live stream, do a full blind of the 2023 releases. And I just have a hunch that A123 is going to win that, but we'll see. Jay says, suggestion, no more waterfalls without a close. So, Jay, I actually had my close mic on, and you should have heard the audio from it. I thought the close mic would be fine because I was facing away from the waterfall and everything like that. Dude, that audio was completely unintelligible. It was so bad. So I had to use the iPhone audio, and if you can't really EQ it because the background noise is so loud, If you try to take that out of there, it all just sounds like sounds terrible. Andrew says, come to Boston. I have some stuff. Andrew, I'd love to, man. I think it's going to be a fun thing as I travel also. Pete says, what about Calumet 14 to 16? It's 103-ish proof. Yeah, Pete. I mean, I love them. What do you mean, what about? Like in this comparison, I'd probably take Calumet 15 and 16 over that Rebecca Creek. And I don't know about the Gatsby. That would be tough. Yeah, Mark, I feel the same way. When people stop by here, I'm like, you gotta let me vacuum. We do an emergency clean, you know. Okay. So these glasses were the high rise. That's that. Okay. Cool. We'll keep it moving. We will keep it moving. Let's go to the Pinhook. So we're an hour into the stream. I want to draw for the giveaway. Usually we draw for the giveaway around 10. Depending on how the rest of the stream's going, that might happen before we get the final blind flight of the night, which tonight is going to be a blind flight from Amy. I have a bunch of them. My friend Frank stopped by and gave me 2 blind flights, which is friggin' awesome. I have those 2, and I have one from Ashton, and I've got this one from Amy. So I'm going to do this Amy blind flight at the end of the stream tonight, whether before or after the giveaway. These are all Elijah Craig barrel proofs. I'm going to try to get as close as I can to the correct batch, stats, year, whatever I can guess. Yeah, Scott, I have, when I was up in Buffalo as well, like, the shelves were full of B523 Elijah Craig barrel proof, and nobody could sell it. I thought that was pretty funny. Andrew says, come play for the Boston Pops. Those gigs are pretty well locked down, and their subs are pretty well locked down, I would imagine. Although I would love to come see, like, a BSO show. Yeah, Christine Amy is the bomb. I almost said the goat. I'm looking at a picture of a bomb and almost said goat. It's one of those days. I saw something earlier about Rick House. What was, or Warehouse? Here we go. Travis talking to Mark. Mini picks, free reign of the warehouses. They sampled over 36. What were you guys talking about? Which distillery are you guys talking about? Oh, I don't know. Speaking of barrel picks, guys, I was checking out the Bourbon Junkies. I've been kind of absent from Whiskey Tube the last few weeks in terms of just watching content. And then I'll go through a period where I catch up on a few videos here and there. And I was watching something they posted about their barrel picks at Backbone. And this spiral cut stave thing they were talking about and how it made the whiskey taste dusty. And then they had an Irish whiskey from Backbone they're picking. And then these like 13th Colony Hazmat rye and an old bourbon. I'm like, hearing that gets me excited, you know? That kind of stuff. These barrel picks are, I just think where it's at, you know? Wave stave, says Travis. That's it. Wave stave. Yeah, so cool. Okay. Tim Tam in for 1 on the old Venmo. Thank you. Appreciate that. Let's do Pinhook. So I saw this in the store today when I just went to stop by on my way home. Couldn't believe I stumbled upon the Gatsby. Had to get it. Arena Wine and Spirits. Again, I'll say it again here in Columbus. Usually they have like 10, 15 allocated bottles out on their front counter that you can pick from, you know, on like a drop day. I think that today was probably their drop day, Thursday. Today they probably had 40 different allocated bottles. Yes, there was scotch, there was Irish, and there was a Writer's Tears finished in ice wine casks. Like, there was some really cool stuff I hadn't heard of. The Rabbit Hole Founders Collection, I guess they did an Amburana finish. The counter was packed. You had to like move things around to even see what they had. And they had the Pinhook. I've always looked past Pinhook. Ohio didn't get this distributed until somewhat recently. Like, I remember I used to go to Kentucky and see this all over the place. The real colorful ones. I love the packaging. I think it's beautiful. But we never got it in Ohio. Now that we are, and this 8-year hit shelves, I looked at the color, and that's what made me buy this. It's 114 proof, which in my mind, I don't think it should be quite this dark. And it just looks like a dark 8-year MGP bourbon. And I'm like, you know what? This is a great 8. Oh, and the wax comes off so easy. That's a big win in my book. But, you know, if you guys have had any of these like 8.5-year backbone picks that Matt did or Dan and Sean did, there's some serious 8-year MGP whiskey out there. So maybe this is going to be in that same boat. Man, I love that wax. Wow. This smells crazy. Travis, that makes sense. Yeah, a buddy of mine sent me a picture of a Russell's 13 case sitting on the ground, but it was full of other whiskey. He was pretty bummed out. Huh. Yeah, that is MGP. This is maybe the most different MGP whiskey I have smelled in quite a long time. At this, at this age. Huh. Has anybody tried this Pinhook 8-year? God, I keep getting something caught in my throat. Yeah, 114.6 or 57.3% ABV. Scott, I picked up a Penelope Toasted 4 grain at 115. I don't like Penelope Toasted, Scott, except for there was one bottle I had with like a medium toast instead of a heavy toast, and I actually liked it. It wasn't 4 grain. I don't know if it was wheated or just standard or, you know, whatever it would have been, but you know, maybe it was a 4 grain. I guess they do blends and stuff. But I've only had one that I like. The other ones taste a little too ashy, a little too charred for me, I guess. I'm trying to wrap my head around this Pinhook 8-year. So there are some bottles that I've tasted that I talk about on MGP as having a buttercream note, typically coming from, in my mind, the 36% rye mash bill, although it has come from both. And I always say that when that buttercream note ages in those whiskeys that have it from MGP, it tends to turn into almost a sarsaparilla root beer kind of note. It gets funky and it tastes almost like a root beer float with the vanilla quality to it, but like you left it out in the sun and it started to kind of turn bad or something. This Pinhook has, and I will say that the best example of that funky root beer float note that I've ever had, the most representative bourbon, was the old Louisville Batch 1. I just thought that had it in droves. It was crazy. This has that like root beer thing to it. Yeah, it has a lot of that root beer thing in it. But it also has like a crispy, what would you call this? I'm going to say something really weird. If you guys have ever had like Parmesan crisps, you know, like, I don't know. I've had them on salads, right? Like a thing of Parmesan cheese. It's just like heated up. It's crispy. Parmesan crisps, right? But then you put like, it has that kind of pungent tang of the Parmesan cheese. It has definitely a crispy quality, but also a peanut butter note. So I'm getting like this root beer note in here, and I'm getting like a Parmesan crisp covered in peanut butter. Like, this is really strange. I don't know what to make of this. I cannot say that I expected that. The palate is excellent. The way that this, you think this is going to sting you on the front of the palate, it does not sting you. It like slowly envelops your mouth, and it just has this really slow ramp up. That's very cool. I have goosebumps because this is such a different whiskey. I don't love it, but it's so different and unique that it's kind of fun to drink. There it is again. It starts super soft, super slow, and it ramps up. And the finish goes on and on and on because there's this, it's like that root beer sarsaparilla spiciness to it. That's what's lingering. I actually really like this. I cannot believe it. I thought this Pinhook vertical stuff was all a gimmick. Wow. It almost is syrupy. It tastes like flat RC Cola. Huh. Andrew, what was the price on this, by the way? Hang on. I think this was maybe around 80. Pinhook vertical OHLQ. In Ohio, it's $87.99. It's a little on the high side. I'd like to see this. Yeah, I mean, if I'm being uber picky, it's an 8-year MGP, 65 to 80 tops, 88. We're starting to creep up there. But all things considered, this has pretty decent availability from what I can tell. And we're talking earlier about like ways to get your hands on solid MGP. Now, we were talking about high age stuff to compete with the Remus Gatsby. I know this is half the age, 8 years, but this is not the last one in the vertical series. I mean, they're going to go up to 12 years old in this series. So I think from this point forward, I'm going to be trying to buy this every year because I think it's totally unique. And I would love to see what this ends up tasting like 2 to 4 years down the road. Wow. This is crazy. It's remarkable. And you know what? To me, I don't know if I still have, I don't think I still have the High Rye Peerless poured out, which has those root beer notes, but it's more of a berry, more berry notes in the Peerless. But it has that cardboard note that I didn't like. If you guys are looking for the Peerless High Rye, but you're looking at it going, I don't want to spend $140 or $150, I just found your alternative. And I know this is MGP, and you're probably like, I've tasted a bunch of MGP. It's all over the market. It's oftentimes overpriced. This is slightly overpriced too, yes. This is so unique and actually gets the closest you would expect, which you wouldn't expect, to the Peerless High Rye. This is the substitute. For $60 to $70 less, this is the substitute for Peerless High Rye. And it might even be better, you know? I know taste is subjective, but you're even going to get another 4 proof points on this than the Peerless. I can't believe the way this tastes. I'll come out with something here. I think this tastes how I would want a toasted barrel to taste. Like, these remind me of toasted barrel notes that I imagine in my head. But whenever I get those notes in practice by actually drinking those whiskeys, they always end up overdone, raw wood, burnt, too char forward, too spicy. This is what I imagine like a beautifully toasted bourbon to end up like. But I don't think it is toasted. So crazy. Andrew, honestly, dude, I think get this and check it out. This is easily the sleeper whiskey of the night for me. I can't believe it. What's up, Tim? Good evening to you as well. Tony says, I grabbed a 7-year Pinhook from Sealbox this year, and it is crazy good. All sorts of buttery maple syrup going on. Yeah, I guess that's kind of where this is going too, huh? Yeah, maple's a great call out, man. I don't know how I missed that, actually. I'm too obsessed with the root beer. Root beer, maple syrup, these are things that people are going to love. I do wish it was like 15 to 20% sweeter and less spicy. That's kind of why I liken this to a toasted product. It has a little bit of that spice in it, but in such a balanced way, I don't mind it. If you told me this was toasted, I would say this is the best kind of toasted product I've ever had outside of 13th Colony and Michter's Toasted Rye. I'd say this is it because it's so well integrated, but it's not toasted. Alex Smith, I don't have an answer for this. Does anybody in the chat know? The New Riff 8-year, is it a club release or will it be available elsewhere? I have no idea. Travis says, I tried the 8-year single barrel. Are these single barrels? Or is this maybe a batched? And maybe do people have barrel picks of this? Pinhook? That would make sense. Sweet pecan walnut, I could see that too. It's crazy to me, guys, how different these MGP whiskeys can be. Same age. Sometimes you get like a 21 rye and a 36 rye bourbon. Same age, and they taste super similar. They're totally different mash bills. They taste super similar. Then sometimes you can get two 21% rye bourbons at the same age, and they taste worlds apart. So it's got to come down to rickhouse, location, elevation. I don't know if they're using different yeast strains or what the case may be, but it's pretty remarkable the differences between them. Travis says, I bought this year's Pinhook High Proof, which is 4 to 5 year Castle and Key at barrel strength. Actually, the best Castle and Key I've ever had. That's good. I haven't had any Castle and Key yet, so I don't have an opinion on that stuff, but I know that a lot of people didn't like it. Scott, B523. I go B523. Pretty handily on that. C923 has this like buttery thing going on in it that makes it feel young to me. It's really sweet, and so if you have a sweet tooth, you're going to like C923. But if you want a dark, balanced whiskey, B523 all the way. And B523 is intense. C923 drinks easy for me. Tony says, Club gets email first, and the public will get the new riff. Pick up at distillery only. It goes on sale tomorrow. Tony, what's the price on that? Bourbon Drop says the 7 years so good. Man, I guess you guys are... I must be late to the party on this Pinhook. Wow. I can't wait to see it in a few years. Oh, I think I have missed several Venmo Super Chats. Let me get into this. Apologies, everybody. William Molnar says he is in, and he's in for 5. Thank you, dude. I missed your chat earlier. I read it and didn't put it on the screen. I don't know that I've tasted those that you mentioned out of that sample pack. Remind me which ones those were again. I know you said the Elijah Craig pick. I may have tasted that, but the other ones I don't think I had. John Gresham, in for 1, says cheers. Cheers right back at you, man. Thank you. And we got Joe jumping in with 3. So thank you, guys. That is awesome. Cheers, and I appreciate all the support of the channel. Wow. All right, I got to put the Pinhook away, or I'm just going to keep drinking it. It is that good. Let's do it. Let's get into this. I think it's time for some dusty whiskey. Okay. I do want to get a fresh glass for this, but I'm going to clear a few glasses right now. Sarah is not home tonight. She's visiting family, so I have the house to myself. So that means I can do dishes late. I'm a night owl, but when Sarah goes to bed, I don't want to make a bunch of noise, so I don't do the dishes. I don't do laundry and house chores. But tonight, when we get off this stream, this guy's going to be up doing dishes. And I'm going to love it because I like handling that stuff immediately, you know, waking up and going, and just being able to have coffee in the morning. Anyways. So, clearing a few glasses. Andrew Surfling says, where's that fat cat? She was in here a second ago. But I think she's probably out there just missing Sarah, basically. She doesn't like me very much. If you see me doing this, guys, I have a trash can next to me. I just flick the water out of the glass. One time, but when I'm in the bathroom, sometimes I'll have my glass of whiskey and I'll go rinse it out in the sink of the bathroom. And I'll flick the water into the tub. And the first time I did that, Sarah, she ducked and covered because she thought I was just throwing the glass into the tub to break it. That was pretty funny. Had to be there. Avery Piper in for 2 in Venmo. Thank you, Avery. I got you. Says, love watching all your videos. Finally get to watch your stream. Awesome, man. Well, thank you for supporting the channel and jumping in on this giveaway tonight. Yeah, Andrew. Lucy is just the kind of cat that she only likes her owner, and I get it. Or like her. Well, Sarah, like I've said before, Sarah and I got Lucy when we were dating a long time ago. And then we broke up for a little while, and Lucy only took a liking to Sarah. So whatever. I'm not bitter. Tim likes ECBPC 923. I feel I'm just in the minority on this one. I know. Okay. Fresh glass. So let's dive into this. Let's talk about it as well. Okay. So, you guys might remember this if you have been, watching the channel for a period of time. I don't know when this live stream happened, but Alex Halverson, who was in the stream maybe 10, 15 minutes ago in the live chat, he said he had to sign off. Alex Halverson sent me a sample with a bunch. Actually, he sent me a lot of samples. Among those, he had some Wild Turkey 8-year decanters at 101 proof. He had one that he had labeled good, and it was clear bourbon. These are from the 80s, I believe. The whiskey was clear, no sediment, anything like that. He labeled one bad, which was super cloudy whiskey. Had clearly been exposed to air for many decades. And the taste, the difference was palpable. It was like the bad one tasted bad. The good one tasted like dusty turkey, which is one of the best tastes you can ever have in your mouth. I promise. But he sent a bunch of stuff with it, like E.H. Taylor Amaranth, Grain of the Gods. I still have some of that up there. Lock, Stock, and Barrel, 16, 18-year rise, yada, yada, yada. Among those samples was this right here. A 1977, he labeled it, Old Ezra 15-year. And these come in at 101 proof. And so I remember I drank this sample on that live stream, and this is one of the best whiskeys I've ever tasted. I think it is ridiculously good stuff. It's a dusty with good proof to it, with so much depth of flavor. It's a 15-year-old whiskey. Before it's a dusty, it's a 15-year whiskey. Then it sits for 40 years. And it, all those factors. Well, I got down to the end of my sample on this. I had this much left in this bottle right before this stream. And Alex actually sent me a package, and he put the rest of his bottle in here, which is only a 200 milliliter. So at this point, he's given me probably more than half of that bottle, and so I thank him sincerely for that. He also sent the Kings County that they're going to taste after this with that, which is very cool. This is a blend that he did at the distillery with some of his friends. But after I tasted this 1977 Old Ezra, I knew I had to have one. These are not easy to find. They don't come around auctions very often. They don't show up on secondary very often. One of these did pop up. I spent a lot of money on it a little while ago. Maybe the longest time I've ever sat on a bottle without opening it. So I'm proud of myself for that, sort of. Although Sarah would say, don't spend that much money on that bottle. Sorry, I zoned out. This has the number 69 on the bottom of the glass. Many people would assume that it's a 1969. I bought this whiskey with the assumption that this was a 1969. Although, truth be told, I would have rather bought one that was closer to this 1977 date. But we're going to talk about the dating here in a second. I know I'm going on about this, but bear with me. The reason I say that is because there's an article, and I pulled it up here. I prepped. Look at that. Look at this. I prepped. Yes, here we go. So I'll share my screen with you quickly. Okay. So they're on bourbonveach.com, this brand history of Ezra Brooks. Okay, so we get into it here and we start talking about there was a lawsuit with Jack Daniels because of some infringement issues that they were accusing them of. But if you scroll down right here, here's this line. By 1966, the brand was being made at the Hoffman Distilling Company, which was owned by Ben William and Robert Ripey. Distillery was small operation, blah, 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 blah. Hoffman ends up becoming Old Commonwealth. Old Commonwealth is where Julian Van Winkle bottled all of the famous stuff that you've seen. Okay? Like, see if I can pull this up. This is the image I yanked earlier. Old Commonwealth Distillery. And you can look up here the legendary releases for Old Commonwealth. I just found this the other day when I was looking for this. So here you go. Society of Bourbon Connoisseurs. These are bottles that are getting 5 figures on the secondary market and at auctions. The Cordy Brothers, bottlings, Colonel Randolph, Hoffman decanters, Twisted Spoke goes for silly money. And so you can read about these. I'm not going to get into it now on the Old Commonwealth website. But the reason I bring this up is because Hoffman becomes Old Commonwealth. So we're talking pretty famous stuff. I'll put this back up for a second. It says by 1966, the brand was being made at the Hoffman Distilling Company. In the 70s and 80s, the brand released mini ceramic decanters. Okay. But here's the question. If it's being made by 1966 at Hoffman, does that mean distilled by that time or bottled at that time from existing Hoffman stock? I would imagine that's the case because old Ezra or Ezra Brooks has never distilled their own stuff. They've always been a sourcing operation. So I wasn't sure if in 66 they were sourcing already 15-year whiskey, if this was even a thing. Maybe they were just doing 7-year at that time. I don't know. But it's a safe bet that by 77, the first sample I tried from Alex, that was Hoffman distillate. In my mind, that was the safe bet because it would have been distilled 62. It just seemed like that was probable. Later, this stuff moves over and it becomes sourced from Medley. So let's get into it now. I love the supposed 77 sample. This bottle says 69 on the bottom. That just means that's when the glass was made. It doesn't mean when the whiskey was put in the bottle was 69. This tax strip on this bottle is the tax strip used between 1962 and 1977. 69 fits within that range. That's great. And on the front, it's labeled 4/5 of a quart. That changed in 1980 to milliliters. So this was pre-1980, falls in line with 69. So in my mind, this had to be bottled between 1969 and the end of the tax strip era for this tax strip, which was 77. That's an 8-year range of when it would be bottled. Therefore, it had to be distilled between 1954 and 1962. 15 years prior to that date range. However, and I said this in the video that I recorded, I missed a key detail. Assuming this box actually came with this whiskey at the time, and it wasn't added on later from another bottling, my dumb self didn't check the bottom right-hand corner, which says copyright 1976. So that narrows the date range to 2 years, which is 76 and 77, because this tax strip would have changed in 77. So now there's a 2-year date range on this. This is 1,000,000% Hoffman distillate based on this date range. I do believe. And the bottle that Alex sent me had a 77 on the glass on the bottom of that bottle. But because this has a 69 and it wasn't bottled for at least 7 years after the fact, Alex doesn't still have this bottle, and we can't trust that this is actually 77. So my goal tonight, I know this was a lot, is to taste this one, which I know is 76 or 77, bottled. Compare it to this other sample, which is probably going to be a newer version, and decide for me personally right now whether I think this is for the same distillate or this is sourced from somewhere else, which would be Medley at that point. That is the setup for this, okay? That's why this is exciting for me, because there's like a little mystery in my mind. There's a little unknown, and there's not a lot of information on this one. Amy, I am not 100% sure about that from the person I acquired it from. But I have looked at pictures online, and what you end up finding, it's a great question, actually. Let's do this. Old Ezra, 1970s. I'll show you what I saw. 1970s. I'll pull this up here in just a second. Okay. So here's what I'm looking at, Amy, as I look up images on Google Images. So you can see some of these have the box and some don't. But look at this detail here on this bottle in particular, if you can see my cursor. There's this neck tag, and the tack strip goes over the neck tag. All right, and this one that I have doesn't have that neck tag. It looks like the one to the right of that picture, where it's just the tack strip, but they both come with the box, which is interesting. That said, I have seen different versions of this box in terms of the text on the front. But it's inconclusive. What I would imagine is that this is an earlier bottle. I have to imagine it's an earlier bottle, the one that doesn't have this extra neck tag on it. I think it just seems older to me, and it seems like they would have later put that neck tag on the bottle. I could be wrong about that, but the fact that they both come with a box means that that box, you're right, could have been repurposed. But look at this. Let's go here, and this was the other part of it. This one, if you can see my cursor, has the neck tag, but the box has an additional thing on here that says 101 proof. My box does not have that. That seems like a later addition, as well as this neck tag or neck thing being probably a later addition too. So I don't know. I would imagine that this box did come with this bottle, though, and that 76 is correct, because I haven't found any examples of this whiskey. Sorry, I removed myself. I haven't found many examples of this whiskey that go before the late 70s in terms of when it was bottled. I haven't found anything confirmed online. Everybody just says, well, it's presumed 70s or presumed 77, 76. I haven't found anything earlier than that. So maybe that's when this 15 year started being released. And when they started using Hoffman back in 66, maybe it was just younger releases. Yeah, sorry, guys. I know I just went to the freaking weeds. Let's drink some whiskey, geez. But on that video that I recorded the other night that won't be released, part of the fun of the video was like taking this cork out. Because if you look on this bottle, the neck of the bottle gets much wider and the cork just floats in there. And everybody says that when you try to open these old Ezras, when you try to get the cork out, it usually falls in, just straight in. Because there's not going to be any resistance in that neck of the bottle. This one came out clean, which was awesome. No issues. So thank you all for humoring me on that kind of thing. And also, like after going through all that in the video that I recorded, it was like a 20-minute video. I'm like, I don't think this is right. Let's just nerd out on a live stream. Scott, I would also imagine this is the original box. I do think so. Oh. Okay. So now I'm going to pour out the... I'll call this the 77, the sample, but it's probably from later. So I'll pour that out. That's going to be on your right. And then the one that I've got here, which 2 people will get samples of tonight, is going to be on your left. And these aren't cheap secondary, right? These are between 1,000 and 1,200. Well, I would say between 900 and 1,200, depending on the year. But this is about the oldest example of this that you can find. So this one, I think I ended up getting like right around 11. But man, I mean, that's a lot of money. I know. I splurge on a bottle like this maybe twice a year, maybe. And this is the one at that time that I was like, I'm gonna go in on this, you know. Andrew Surfling, speaking of Old Commonwealth, there's a Twisted Spoke Green Glass 16-year at auction right now, ending on Sunday, currently at $15,200. Doesn't include an additional 25% in fees. Yeah, I mean, geez. What is up, Brian? 77 mentioned. 77th like. Nice one, man. Thank you. Oh, here we go. Bottle Kill Mafia Black Star. I have a 67 Ezra 155-month Liberty Bell decanter. Well, at that age, man, I mean, you're talking pretty much 15-year whiskey like this. So I guess that's probably Hoffman. So maybe there are examples this early of Hoffman. So this could be 69 if the box is wrong, I suppose. Crazy. So let's check this out on the nose. So I think the obvious part of this is that, yes, you do kind of get like an old butterscotch type note, but that's actually not what makes this Ezra stand out. This reminds me of the A.H. Hirsch 16-year that Matt sent me, the 1974 distilled A.H. Hirsch 16. I think it was the gold foil top, so it was bottled later. It was tanked and then bottled later. Would have been bottled at Old Commonwealth, which is Hoffman. But it was not distilled there. It was distilled in Pennsylvania. But this tastes like that, or smells like it, which is that it almost smells like sherried scotch. Like old school Macallan sherried scotch, or old school... Well, I would go with that. I would say old school Macallan, like when the sherry casks were good in the 90s or whatever. This smells like that on the nose. It's just crazy, crazy dark fruit. Now, this also has that pavement note, or that's what I called it. Matt called it cast iron skillet. It has that exact note from the A.H. Hirsch in here. But in addition to that, crazy sherried dark stewed fruits, this savory cast iron skillet pavement, granular quality to it. Obviously there's like the old dusty funk antique butterscotch thing, which is kind of more in the background. This is so unique in the fact that it's in a very herbal bourbon. If you guys have ever, again, I'm sorry to reference wine, but I don't dive into bourbons and find a lot of herbal notes usually. I find them often in wine though. And so I'm going to relate it to that, even though I know nothing about wine. What people call underbrush notes in wine, that's what I get out of this. It's like this mixture of these kind of herbal and vegetative notes, which I can't believe is actually in a bourbon. Interestingly enough, there was an old Fitz 12-year that Chris Luddig opened up at Pours in the Park and shared with everybody that night. We were in a room together, and it tasted like only herbal notes. It was the weirdest savory, like oregano forward bourbon. It was crazy. And everybody in that room that night will tell you how crazy it was. Jason Calori was there from Mash and Drum. We talked about it a lot that night. This has that. So that must be an old school bourbon thing, that you get these herbal savory notes. So this is very, very cool. But I think the standout part, I think that makes it stand out, the herbal notes, but I think the most forward in your face note in this whiskey is the sherried scotch, like stewed dark fruits thing. Jeb, what's up, man? I talked a bunch of smack about you earlier. Man. What a crazy whiskey. It is a little dry. I mean, it's intense. It hits you, it sucks the moisture out of your mouth. And it sweetens up on the back end. So the first thing that hits you is all of that kind of pavement, cast iron skillet, whatever you want to call it. That hits you up front as a spicy component. As it works its way back, immediately you get into those stewed, sherried, dark fruit notes. And then as you get into the finish is where all of the butterscotch starts to show up. So you almost move from spicy, savory to fruity and dry, and then it starts to sweeten up. It's a progression that actually is reverse of most whiskeys. Most whiskeys hit you up front, they're sweet, and then they move into like a dry spiciness into the end. This is totally reversed of that. Wild. Now on to the other one, the sample. I'm going to see how similar or dissimilar these are. So here's the one I just tasted. And here's this one. Very different. Like, completely different. This tastes like dusty turkey. I don't think those are from the same distillery. No, not at all. Which would place this bottle, the presumed 77, that would place this as being probably sometime in the 80s because it would have been medley sourced. When exactly? That article did say when it shifted. In 1979, the Medley Distilling Company acquired 21 Brands Inc. and the Ezra Brooks brand. Production shifted to Owensboro, Kentucky at the Medley Distillery. Okay. So I think this is likely Medley. And it says the Medley mash bill was 77 corn, 10 rye, 13 barley. This became Medley Distillery's flagship brand. Okay. I have to just base this off of how different these two whiskeys are. It's weird. The one that I am imagining as Medley is super grassy. And it's the one that I loved before. That's the reason I got into this. But in comparison, it's just tons of fresh cut grass. And then like very funky leather. Like that, and that's what I loved about it before, was this funky leather note. And it has a lot more 1980s National Distiller / Wild Turkey butterscotch dusty note. That's why I said it reminds me 100% of Dusty Turkey. But to me, far and away the superior bourbon, which means that this ranks amongst the top bourbons I've ever tasted, is this bottle. Luckily for me, after paying so much money for it. It's just fantastic. Wow. Interesting. So I think whoever does win the giveaway tonight, and I wish I had enough to give you each. You know what? I'll do it. Here's what I'll do. This is a 2-ounce sample bottle. I will put half an ounce in a bottle for each of the two winners of this other 1977 Ezra, so that you can do this side by side. So you'll have an ounce of this one in the bottle and half an ounce of this other one, which was the reason I got into this in the first place. I can spare half an ounce each for this and still have just a teeny little bit left for myself for later, because I want to show Sarah this comparison, so that'll be hers. So there we go. I'll throw that in the giveaway too. I think that'll be really cool for people to do this. Brian jumping in on the giveaway. Thanks, man. Put you up on the screen here. It says, one shot, one kill, doing anything scary for Halloween. Maybe dress up as Animal, the drummer from the Muppets. Excuse me. We do have a show this Sunday. First, tomorrow, I'm actually playing the Black Panther movie soundtrack. We're playing it with the movie live, and that's going to be fun. It's just a bunch of loud drumming. It's super cool. Then Sunday, we're doing a Halloween show with the orchestra. And we're all encouraged to wear outfits. I hope we're going to wear outfits. Encouraged to wear costumes, although I don't really have a costume. I don't know what I'm going to do for that. But Animal would be cool if I could. But no, probably not doing anything scary. When is Halloween? Next Tuesday? No, I just have an interview that day. So that's kind of scary, I guess. Okay. So I think we're all caught up on the giveaway. Brian, here's a cool tidbit for you, actually, and for anyone watching. There's something called a talking drum. Let's see if I can show you real quick. There we go. So here, talking drum. And it's where you, if you guys look at the design of this drum, and you can see like the rope around it. Here, I'll zoom in. You can see like the ropes around it. If you put that under your arm and you squeeze the ropes, it squeezes the tension of the drum heads on both sides. So when you have that little beater that you see on the bottom, you play with that beater and your hand on the talking drum, and you're squeezing it and you're changing the pitch just with the pressure of your arm on the drum. That is a huge thing in the Black Panther soundtrack. There's a guy playing that drum. Well, that guy, his name is Masamba. He just so happens to live here in Columbus, and he is the one that played on both soundtracks. He was actually in the second movie playing that drum, like on the screen of the movie, and he tours around with the show as they do the movie live with orchestra, and they project the movie up, and we play the soundtrack. He sits in front of the orchestra and plays all of his talking drum parts from the album soundtrack live with us. So it's a total trip. I've actually worked with him before. Last December, I played with him on a show, and I found out then that he played in Black Panther, and now we're doing that Black Panther show with him. And he's from Senegal, and he is just a mofo. It is the coolest shit you have ever seen. It is so cool. Yeah, it's kind of like it's like a bagpipe drum, kind of. That's funny. That's a cool reference. Man, it's so neat, though. So, yeah, that's what we're doing tomorrow. I did one rehearsal today. We have one more tomorrow, and then the show tomorrow night. Okay. So there we go. The Ezra is pretty well settled, although I'm going to enjoy the last little bit of both of these here. What a cool comparison. Lots of fun. And I said this on my video that I recorded that I won't release, and I'll say it again here. And I know this is something that I preach about like once every 3 months. If you ever have the chance to go to a bar that has dusty whiskeys, like let's say in Louisville, I haven't been to any of those bars, like Neat, or I think Revival does some of this stuff too, where you can taste it. But if you go to somewhere like that, and the choice is that you're going to pay like $40 for a George T. Stagg pour, or $50 to drink something from the 1990s KBD distillate, or 1980s Dusty Turkey, Cheesy Gold Foil, go for the Dusty. There will always be more George T. Stagg made. There will always be more Pappy 15, William LaRue, Old Fitz. That shit is a dime a dozen these days, even though it is rare. You understand my point. Pay the same or a little bit more of an upcharge if you are there to like vacation, to splurge a little bit. Have that experience, because it is an experience to taste this stuff. I mean it. If I could get rid of my entire whiskey collection and put all my effort somewhere, like I don't know how many thousands of dollars of whiskey I have in my house opened and unopened. If you calculated that out and I could trade all of it in and get like 20 bottles of something that's really high end, I would not be choosing George T. Stagg, Pappy, Chateau de la Baude Batch 1. As much as I love those, I would be choosing stuff like this because it is just remarkable stuff. Okay, I'm done. It's like a time capsule, you know? That's the way I like to look at it. There's already nostalgia built into being a bourbon enthusiast because you're just dealing with something that has to spend time somewhere and rest. So there's like a built-in nostalgia. And the nostalgia also comes from social situations, which this is so great for. But there's even more nostalgia, especially for somebody who actually maybe grew up in the 80s or the 90s, to drink something from that era or like drink a birth year bottle. I think that's the most special stuff. And William Molnar jumping in again, man. Thank you. And he says, here, hang on one sec. I'll read it. Jumping in for 5, man. Thank you. Jeez Louise. That's awesome. He says, after that generosity, I'm in again. I guess you're talking about the half sample. I wish I could provide more of this stuff, but I shouldn't even have this much. Alex Halverson is a badass, and I hope he's okay with me giving this away. But this is what it's about. Whiskey is meant to be shared with people, you know? It's more fun to share it than it is to hang on to it, I promise. And Arturo Sanchez hopping in with 5 entries as well, and he says, sample giveaway. So thank you, guys. Scott, I have a lot of old Jack Daniels bottles I used to collect before I got into bourbon. Don't know what that's exact. Jay, come on, bro. Oh, I'm gonna kill you, bro. Jay, I can't wait to see you again. I can't wait. I'm gonna just make sure I've got a sharp weapon on me when I see you again. Just kidding. I'll get demonetized if I say that. Guy jumping in, thank you. Let me get you, just so I don't forget. In for 4. So that begs a question. Why has the taste changed so much since then? Why is Dusty stuff so much better? Guy, I will say on the whole, 65 to 75% of Dusty whiskey at its core, in my opinion, is better. But I have tasted plenty of Dusty stuff, Scotch and bourbon, that is not as good. It has that Dusty funk, but that's the only thing it has. There's no substance beyond it. So it's not all better, but it is all novel when it has that flavor. And I think it is easy to confuse, for me especially, because I romanticize Dusty so much, it's easy to confuse novelty with an actually good profile. That being said, the reason it's better, a lot of people liken it to the wood that was being used back then. When you're talking about higher quality wood used for the barrels, when you're talking about perhaps differences in grains, although that's speculative. The cleanliness of stills can come into play, which I think is why Heaven Hill pre-fire versus post-fire is so desirable, because when you lose the stills, or if you have to clean stills, you lose a lot of the extra flavor, let's say. But I think it's all kind of a mystery to some degree, which is kind of cool, but also kind of frustrating. Someone told me to suck a fart. Who is that? Why should I? Does anybody know Sean? Sean, why should I suck a fart, dude? That's not nice. Unless it's a joke and I missed the setup. Either way, that's okay. Andrew, what is going on? Jeb says that was not me. What? Speaking of time caps, we're remodeling our kitchen within the next 6 months. Maybe I'll bury some samples in the wall. So next round of folks that think our design style is absolute trash. That would be funny, actually. Dude, I haven't been told to suck a fart in a long time. I appreciate it. I appreciate that phrase. What a great phrase. Okay. What next? We are almost 2 hours. We are 2 hours in, basically. A few minutes shy. The last thing I'm going to do before we draw for the giveaway is I'm going to taste this Kings County Private Blend. I do have a new glass. This is a 200 milliliter, and I love this. I love the format of this smaller format. 200 milliliters, 67.9% ABV. And I actually have always really liked these bottles. Like the bottle shape, it's just this flask style. It's super simple. The label is the most simple it could possibly be. So I love it. And this one has leaked, so it's a little stained, which adds kind of a, makes it kind of classic. On the back, 80% New York corn, 20% UK malt. So there you go. No rye in this one. Corn and malt. And samples of this will also be in the giveaway tonight. Just so you know, there will be enough of this to go around, which is cool. So again, thanks to Alex. And I should have maybe asked permission first, but thank you, Alex, because we are sharing your whiskey around. We are sharing this private blend that you guys did at Kings County. Minimum age is 4 years, but I know there's older stuff in here. And there are many different barrel sizes. I don't think I have the exact breakdown of this right now. He may have sent it to me. I'll give it like 30 seconds of looking before I give up. Hang on, here we go. Okay. Alex and I had a long conversation the other night about all this stuff. Okay, here. I'm not sure. Oh, here it is. Here's the breakdown. Cool. So this has 60% of this is 4-year Solera bourbon, 53 gallon. 60% is 53 gallon 4-year. But then we have some 15 gallon 6-year. 30% of the blend is that with some 53. Then we have 10 and 15 gallon 7-year, which is going to be extremely oaky. And then we have 10 gallon 7-year of a high rye bourbon. So there is actually a little rye in here, in that high rye bourbon. It's just the label on this one must just be a stock label. So we have 10, 15, and 53 gallon bourbons between 4 to 7 years in this blend. And Kings County is completely new to me. I've tasted it one time. I think Darrell, who is in here, I think, poured it for me at Pours in the Park. It was so late in the night. My palate was shot. I remember it tasting a little crafty, but also tasting very good. Kind of like New Holland, the high proof New Holland stuff that people pick every once in a while. A little crafty, but so intense and so great. Will, a label looks like it was made on a 90s brother word processor. It does have that word, that like typewriter vibe, which I think is actually really cool. Jay, I hate you so much. Jay, I hate you. Joe says it has to be a lot with the wood. I guess non-factory farm ingredients, different water. I forgot about the possibility of water contributing. Old stills, alleged global warming equals changes to how bourbon ages in Kentucky could be a thing. Yeah. I think it's such a mystery, but you're right. All we can do is kind of list off the possibilities. And yeah, it's tough. Whiskey BS, before we get into this Kings County, joined late. What was the verdict on the Gatsby? Batch 2 is very good, still overpriced, better than Batch 1. If you see Batch 1 on the shelf, my advice is to just forget about it. And if you are hell-bent on buying a Gatsby, please make sure it's Batch 2, and please don't pay over $250 for it. I think best price point between $150 and $180, up to $200, but SRP is $250, so you can't, it's not realistic. So if you can get this at $250, and you know that you want to spend that, and you know you're going for a lower proof bourbon, this one has a lot more dark fruit, fresh blackberry and plum notes than the previous batch. A better nose, slightly, a much better palate, and a significantly better finish. All keeping in mind that it's 98.1 proof. That's my quick breakdown. Okay, Kings County. Ooh, smells good. It's hot. Big hot cinnamon notes on this. This reminds you on the nose right away of an Elijah Craig Pirate bottle. But hang on. Don't get your hopes up too much on that. But that is the initial impression with that just punch in the face ethanol cinnamon thing. It almost smells like bloody is not the right way to say this. It smells, the best way I can describe this, I know people have talked about bloody butcher corn. I don't know what that is. I think I've tasted that once in a whiskey. This just has like this, it smells red. It's the best way I can say it. Like red. I don't mean in a cinnamon way. Yeah, so it does have a little craftiness to it, but it's not like this Epic, which we started tonight with. It's not the same. The Kings County is super balanced in terms of its craft notes to its like standard bourbon notes. This is very impressive. I did not expect to like this. Alex, that is nothing against you. I mean, that's just purely about using smaller format barrels, a craft distillery, all that. I did not expect this. Wow. That is very good. It's a little unbalanced. Like there's a little more spice than actual flavor underneath it. It's weird. Here's how I could describe it. If you have two lines on a graph, and your top line is your spice, that just goes up immediately, right? And the flavor kind of trails behind it, and then all at once at the end, the flavor catches up with the spice. So there's a moment as you're drinking this where you're like, oh, that's kind of overwhelmingly spicy with not enough support, and then all at once as it comes into the finish, it all comes together. So a little disjunct in there. That is a product of blending, truthfully, and I know that this is a private blend, so that is what it is. That's the challenge of blending. But the front of the palate on this is good in terms of balance. The finish is great in terms of balance. It's in the middle where it falls out of balance. But where I thought I would have the biggest issue were actually just in the tasting notes itself, like the actual profile. I don't have an issue with any of that. I love there's a little craftiness to this. 20% in there. And the rest of it feels pretty darn standard. It's so spicy. Proof hounds would love this stuff. I mean, cool. Very cool. Scott, what is your Venmo again? It should be in the description of the video. It's this. See Leach Music. I'll just throw it in there real quick for you. Bourbon Retriever, cheers to you. 200 for Gatsby. Was that batch 2? I'd pull the trigger at 200. That's awesome. If you can find it there, that's great. Ding dong. Let's check in here. You know, Sarah has not texted me all day. Got to check in on her. Okay. Okay, Matthew jumping in here. Matthew, I appreciate the super chat. And yeah, sorry about last week. I didn't take the banner down, and he super chatted after the fact, and I refunded him once I realized it the next morning. Got you in for 2, man. Let me check PayPal real quick, just to confirm. We're about to do the giveaway here. Please get any last minute entries into the giveaway by 10:15 Eastern, so in about 2.5 minutes ish. Just a reminder, the giveaway is going to be a sample pack for 2 winners, the exact same pack. Pinhook 8-year, which was a big sleeper in tonight's lineup. Gatsby Reserve Batch 2. Old Ezra 15, 1976 or 77 edition, plus half an ounce of this other one, which is from a little later, possibly from a different distillery sourced, but also from the 70s/80s. Half an ounce of that, an ounce of this Epic Maryland Rye, an ounce of this Kings County private blend. I believe the first ever private blend they've done, as far as I know. An ounce of Still Austin High Rye. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that's 6 ounces and a half. And then I'm going to add in a few extra pours to round out that sample flight of just some cool stuff. Cool and good stuff. Possibly an Armagnac, possibly 4-gate Kelvin 60, stuff like that. We'll see. So get those in the last 2 minutes here. And then I'm going to do this Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Flight because Sarah's not here, so we can go a little later. And then we'll call it a night. Do you go by Matt or Matthew? All good about last week. Just another proof of what a stand-up guy you are. Glad I'm... Oh, thanks, man. Thanks for saying that. No, it's like I woke up that morning and I'm like, oh shit, I have $10 in my Venmo. And then I'm thinking, oh, I left someone out. You know, we're going to have to figure this out. And I realized I went back. I'm like, I never took the banner down. I'm an idiot. Looks like a couple more super chats jumping in here at the last minute. I'll wait until 10:15 and then we'll kind of follow up on all this. Matt. Okay, cool. Thanks, Matt. Tonight, I would say the theme of tonight, besides the like deep nerd out session, Antiques Roadshow, apologies profusely for the Old Ezra 15, I would say the flight of tonight has been pleasant. The theme of tonight has been pleasant surprises. Even back to the first pour, this Epic Rye, I'm pleasantly surprised by this. And then getting into the Gatsby Batch 2, again, pleasantly surprised how this corrects a lot of the errors of Batch 1. The super sleeper of the night, obviously being this Pinhook 8-year, which I cannot believe. Not only on the tasting note side, but how it starts so soft on the palate and so slow, and it just ramps up and keeps going with all those root beer, syrupy cola notes. Obviously, the Ezra 15 is just ridiculous. And then this Kings County shocking me, too. All of this has been a big surprise of a night for me tasting whiskey. And these are the kind of nights, even though I'm a little low energy right now and I'm kind of tired and tripping over my words and everything from lack of sleep, these are the kind of nights I really appreciate about this hobby, you know. The best nights are the ones where you get to share it with friends, all of you, but especially when you have someone on camera with you or you're just hanging out around a fire or on a couch with somebody and you're talking about this, and those are the best nights. But the second best nights are being pleasantly surprised by whiskeys when you kind of you just get inundated with this stuff. You taste so many whiskeys. They all start to run together. You don't get excited as much anymore. 2023 has been overall a great year for whiskey, and this stream might be one of the most optimistic streams for me where I'm like, shit, pretty much everything was good or even better than expected. So, yeah. All right, we're going to wrap the giveaway now. Let's get these final entries in from the Venmo. And I will take the banner down. All right, so we've got Scott who jumped in for 1. Thank you, Scott. Much appreciated, man. And we have Daryl in for 1. Also, Scott says, cheers. I'll have to rewind to see the Great Gatsby. I love that. The Great Gatsby review as I just opened my bottle this weekend. I like it, Scott. What do you think, man? And then Daryl with a little coffee mug. Thank you, Daryl. Anybody else? I think we're good. Copper Wolf, what's up, dude? Cheers, everyone. I still need to taste through those Found North samples, which I really appreciate you sending me. And I think your package should have arrived. Let me know if it did not. Catching the tail end, and we'll catch the replay. Awesome. So just another reminder. I know, broken record. Please hit that like button if you have not already. All right. Cool. Let's put this up on the screen now and double check. We can do this all on one, which is great. Good, you got it yesterday. Thanks for letting me know. Here we go, guys. Here is the final count down. Just kidding. Here's the final count on Super Chats. As you can see, your name in the left column, as I say every week. The number to the right is your dollar amount divided by 5. So it gives you your number of entries. And it's per Super Chat, not in total. So if you Super Chatted twice, like William Molnar, he was in for 5 here, which was $25. And then he was in for 5 here a second time, $25. And then that populates to the right here automatically because of the wizardry of this spreadsheet, thanks to Amy. You can see William, those 5 entries there and there. So just confirm your name, take the next 60 seconds to do so, and then I will copy the full name list into random.org, spin it 7 times, and we'll find our 2 winners. Yeah, Joe Dickinson, 2023 seems better because 2022 was so bad. You're not wrong about that. 2022 was pretty abysmal for American whiskey, I think. But this year's been very good. All right. One last check. Anybody have anything to say? If I missed anything, please let me know. I can correct it quickly. But it seems like we're good. So let's copy this list. We have a total of 57 Super Chats. That is amazing. Thank you all so much. Oh. Okay, we go there. Paste it in. There we go. It should start with Zach, and it should end with Daryl. Let's confirm Zach and Daryl. Boom. We are good to go. Let's spin it 7 times. No double winners. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got William Molnar and Guy. 7. Boom. Okay. Wow, Hendo. I forgot he super chatted earlier. Hendo I think he maybe had a $10 super chat, and he's coming away with it, man. Thank you guys so much. Congrats to Guy and Hendo. And please shoot me an email at drumsanddrams@gmail.com with your address. I think I have Hendo's information unless he's moved. But Guy, shoot me an email because I don't think I've sent anything to you yet. Congrats, everybody. And again, thank everyone. Super chatting especially, but even if you didn't super chat, just for being here, I appreciate your time. It all means a lot to me. And it's still kind of crazy I get to do this, drink whiskey on camera. So, congrats, guys. I'm going to write this down myself just so I have a clear record of it. When I get backed up on super chats is when I don't take down enough information and I screw things up. So, tonight is the 26th. And I'm going to write Guy and... oh my gosh. And Hendo win flights. Cool. Congrats, guys. And now we're going to get... Travis, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I know. Now we're going to get into this final blind flight. And I'm actually feeling pretty good going into it. Like, yes, I've been drinking whiskey tonight. Yes, I can tell that in my perception of things. But I think was it last week that I did a blind flight at the end and I was in no condition to do one. I mean, by the end of this one, it's going to be probably tough times because it's all Elijah Craig barrel proof, but small sips. We'll get through this together. But I feel good going into it. Kings County's good. But I don't have liver space for that right now. So let's get 4 fresh glasses. And I have the secondary camera to show you the cards. Okay, so here's a test card. Focus looks good. Nice. So this is what Amy sent me. She sent me the black cards with the letters on one side. And of course, I believe I've already checked on this, but I think this back card here, yes, she always puts an X, which is awesome. So when I look at both sides of this, you can't see anything. So there we go. I remove the X card and we discard that. Okay. So I'm going to put these out on the table. I got to clear a little space. So this is my test card. Let's bring this back full screen for just a second. Okay, Sarah texts me. We're good. I get so worried. When she goes out of town, I get so worried about her. Just irrationally, but... People ask, you know, me, as I'm sure they do, any of you out there that are married, when you get married, everyone's like, what changed? You know, did anything change? And to me, it's like, nothing changed, except I just worry more about her. Why are her texts dinging? Maybe I have her set as like a priority or something. She is a priority or a favorite, but I also want them to stop dinging in my ears. Okay, A, B, C, D. Now we're going to pour these things out. Andrew. Yeah, and the other thing is, like, I get, if you guys can't tell my personality, which I'm sure you can at this point, you know, I'm an anxious person, right? And my line of work doesn't help with that, being under pressure on stage all the time. Sometimes it's not a big deal, and sometimes it's, you know, you're playing hard parts. But, you know, when Sarah's not home and the house is quiet and, you know, you come home and there are no extra dishes in the sink, it's just what you left there. That's like shocking to me now. You know, it's like a weird thing when nothing has changed since you last left the house when you come back. And I always find myself when she leaves getting sad, not only because she's here, but then I start imagining, like, which is horrible and dark to say, like, if something ever happened to her, you know, I just go to a dark place because I'm like, this would be what it would be like if something ever happened. So, not to bring the mood down, but man, kind of puts things in perspective a little bit. So thanks again, Amy. If you're still here or if you check out the replay, thanks for all that you do, of course. And in particular right now, thank you for this blind flight of Elijah Craig barrel proofs. Okay. I gotta grab my notebook. Well, on that note, cheers, everyone. Sorry, this is my deep-seated anxiety from childhood speaking. All right, let's do this. So the first thing I'm going to do in this flight of Elijah Craig barrel proofs, I am going to try to take some notes on just proof, basically, and a couple of characteristic notes. I'm going to coat the glasses, and I'm going to do a quick down-the-line nosing to just try to expose right off the bat if I see that perhaps some of these are pre-2020 or post-2020 batches. I have a lot of confidence in myself on this, but like before I get into it, but that might change as I start to do it and start to freak out a little bit. And, you know, some nights I do well, like blinds make sense to me right off the bat. I'm smelling and tasting accurately, and some nights I can tell right away that my palate and my nose are not on, and it freaks me out. And they all start to smell and taste the same, and that's a dangerous place to be in with a blind flight. Okay. So my least favorite on the nose is D. And the first impression right away is that A is in fact, and I will show you the cards here in a second, but my first impression right away is that A is a pre-2020 batch. The D is probably not. B is a mix-up for me, and C, I think, is pre-2020. So we'll see. We'll see on this. But interesting. It's interesting to just do a quick down-the-line nosing to get a feel for everything. I'm going to put my keyboard over here. Make a little more room on this table. And I'll get into this now and start showing you guys the cards. So, glass A. Let's get up this camera. Okay, hang on. There we go. We'll get this up. We are in focus. No, hang on. There. I want it in this order. So A, I'm going to turn my head, put it up. If I click, it should go full screen. So you should be full screen right now. 3, 2, 1. Let me know if this wasn't in focus or you need to see it again. It should be off full screen. And we're good to go. Yeah. Okay. So that's in glass A. Glass A to me definitely pre-2020. Proof isn't crazy. There's something about this that reminds me of the 2019 batches, which is that there is, and I do apologize if there's a little more silence in this blind flight than normal. I have to really think through this. So just, that's a forewarning. This has kind of this fruitiness to it that a lot of the 2019 batches had, in particular, A119. Well, they all had it, actually. A119 is a little more sour. C919 is a fireball because it's so high proof. It's like 136, 7, 8, something like that. But it has those fruit notes with it. And then B519 is much more relaxed. There's a little orange note in B519 typically that I pick up on. And because it's at 100 and I believe 21 proof, that batch feels lower proof. No, I'm not certain that this is 2019, but because it does have a little butterscotch note that the 2017s had. 2018 is this weird year for me where I can't quite get a grasp on what the 2018s are. But my memories of the 17 batches, for instance, A117 is all this like very dusty butterscotch note with a little too much proof to it. B517 is a little green, a little like sappy, bright ethanol, bright menthol. I don't like it very much, actually, B517. It won Whiskey of the Year. And then C917, which is one that I first tried from Amy, actually, is one that I remember finding a lot of tobacco on. So those are kind of my memories of C9 of the 2017s. The 2018s, I have a hard time. The 2019s, A, like I said, a little more sour. B, lower proof with a little orange. C, super fiery with those red fruit notes. A lot of dustiness and a lot of cinnamon. And when you get into the 2020s, A120, very similar to C919, just a little hotter and a little less dusty. B520 is all even keeled, just caramels, very down the middle. And then C920 feels a little greener, a little more high rye influence to that one. With, again, kind of like B517, a little bit of this like brighter menthol thing to it. So, okay, so A. All right, on to B. B feels like a pretty decently lower proof than A. Yeah, quite a bit. And if these are post 2020, then that would suck, because that would mean they're really good. Scott has a C917. It's a great batch, man. To me, I think it's very different. Amy put that in a blind for me a long time ago. She sent it with, I want to say, like, maybe an old school JW Dant in that, and maybe a rum and something else. It was like BA and BB on these long sample bottles. It looked like test tubes almost. All right, on to B, which might be B520. I'm nosing it. It smells lower proof. B520 is like 127, maybe. And this is really down the middle. It's still a little dusty, but it's down the middle caramel. If B could be beef, I'm going to call my shot. I might change this later, but I'm going to say this is possibly B520. Letter B. I'll show you. I don't think that's what that is. All right, let me show it to you. This is a very hard flight, by the way. Like, to try to call batches. Okay, cursor's there, and if I click, we should go full screen. Okay, 3, 2, 1. We should be back to 2. Okay, let's move this back. Yeah, we're good. Okay, so that's B. Copperwolf says, it's always amazing me how you guys have such good memories of the batches. Yeah, I mean, it's not like that for everything, but Elijah Craig, I do my best. It's been a few months since I've revisited. Sometimes for fun, I'll just pour in a night. I'll just do like 3 different Elijah Craig barrel proofs and just check them out, you know? Haven't done that in a while. So I need to do that. I purposefully didn't do it once I knew Amy sent me this, because I was like, I want to go in totally fresh. What a tough challenge this is. It's fun for me. It's probably less fun for you because I'm just like really thinking on this one. C feels more recent to me. This doesn't feel like it's got those dusty notes. No. So let me show you guys C. Okay. If I click, I think it should go full screen. I think I may have moved my cursor a little bit. So if this isn't full screen, let me know. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, that should have worked. Let me know if that didn't work. This is C. Man. This is a bitch and a half. I'll tell you that. And you know, where a lot of the dustiness on these Elijah Craigs come in also is on the finish. The longer the finish sits, the more you start to pick up on that note. When you start stacking these side by side, like let's say A is a dusty note version of Elijah Craig pre-2020, and let's say B is not, the finish from A is still going to linger as you taste B, get into the finish of B. It's all going to overlap. That's what makes this challenging. It's like the cumulative effect of the finish. I have weird guesses in my head. It's like committing to them early is maybe not a smart move, but maybe first impressions are the right way to go about this. Because guessing, it's not like I'm guessing proof and trying to remember the proofs of all these. I don't remember those. I remember a few. But like, for instance, Glass C, maybe it's the power of suggestion of the letters, but I'm feeling like C could be C922 because it doesn't smell dusty to me. It smells modern, but when I taste it, I have a little bit of something in there that reminds me of a dusty Elijah Craig. And when I think of a profile that does that, it was C922. A123 for me was more dark fruit, a little less dusty than C922. Those two batches, C922, A123, were the only two batches recently where I've picked up any semblance of those older dusty notes. So like that's my initial guess, and I do want to put that out there first, just so I have a record of it. Because you know me, I'll guess these things right, and then I'll go back and rethink and screw myself. That one's also more nutty. Which is like an A121 profile. Where I get really hairy are the 2022, like A122, B522. Those are batches I'm not super familiar with. So, okay, this is good info. I'm going to go to D now. I'll show you guys D so you can see all four of them. Okay, so on to D. Here we go. Let's get this up. Okay. And let's get this ready. Okay, and turn. Hang on, I gotta put this down. I have to make sure my cursor's on here. It was not. Okay, cursor's on now. Turn back. All right, we should be full screen. And 3, 2, 1. Okay, should be good now. That was D. D smells like MGP. I don't know why. It's weird. I wonder if there's a batch I know that smelled like this. This is tough. This is a hell of a flight, Amy. That's very cinnamon forward D. Very cinnamon forward and doesn't feel particularly old school at all. No. No, it smells younger. If I had to take a guess, I think this is B523. If that, like, my first impression guess, B523. The younger age statement, I remember it feeling, what's the word? Like, what would be the word for this? Like, it's like the bottom fell out of it or something, you know, and it's just all these like brighter notes. And the proof makes sense too, because that was a, you know, it's in that realm of lower proof batches. The only other one that, you know, my other memory of is B521 was a very burnt batch, very low proof. I think it was 118.4 or like it was something along those lines. B521 was my least favorite batch ever. Super burnt profile. Could be that, but again, I'm trying to go first impressions. I'm going to go back through one more time and do a once over on each of these and then just make my guesses, because I could sit and labor over this all night and it's not going to do me any good. But so far, my guesses are that B is B520. I don't stand by that. C, C922. I could stand by that. D, B523. I could definitely stand by that. A, I said definitively pre-2020. It's higher proof. And A, in my opinion, is possibly A119 or C919. Here's what I'll do in this final round. Joe tasting along. Okay. And the other interesting thing about doing this with these four is when you do a blind and you have things that are this similar, you know what's crazy is when you're like in a Matt Madness round or just a blind where you don't know what they all are. Like, I know these are all Elijah Craig, barrel proof. But when you do it and you don't know what they all are, when things start to taste super similar to me, I get freaked out and I go, I must be way off tonight because they taste so similar. I have had more than one occasion where they all start to taste similar to me. In the reveal, it turns out that they are either all from the same distillery or they're all related in some way. And I'm like, shit, I was right. They really were all similar. What comes to mind is there was a Jack Daniels only flight at Matt Madness one year. I think I was against Kira and Clifton, maybe. So, and I'm like, oh my God, these all smell so similar. And they were. So in this case, what's funny is they do all smell similar, but it's because they are similar, and it makes me confident after this round, where if I go into something and they smell very close, that I need to be confident that they could be either the same thing or something very, very related. So in this one, because they are so close, it is not as easy as I thought to pick up these differences. I know I'm a few drinks in. It would be great to test this on a fresh palate where I've got like just a little Eagle Rare in my system and I go in. But that, I'm not making an excuse. I would just love to know the comparison of doing this now and doing this then to see how I'm, doing. Wow, Joe. Joe says, I did a blindfolded wine tasting a few weekends ago, and 0 out of 6 real wine nerds couldn't tell the difference between same temperature white wine and red wine. I've heard this before, Joe, and I didn't believe it. Oh, 6 of 6. And that's how I read it, but I still even read out loud 0. Yeah, right. That's crazy, man. I would love to be part of an experiment like that, because that sounds like unbelievable to me. But I've heard it many times now. Wow. All right, so let's go back to front now. Starting with Glass D. Glass D, this is not a good Elijah Craig barrel proof. This might not be B523. This could be like a 2021 batch, which was a really rough year. This could be A121 or B5. You know, I'm just going to use my nose first. I'm drawn to A121 on that. I'm really drawn to it. But I'm also drawn to B523. I think this is older. I think C is... I said C922 maybe. No, I think it's older than that. B came up hot there. C and B are hard. Very hard. God. It's starting to really run together now. Scott, I like C922. I like that one. I agree. Amy, this is very hard. So I have my first impressions down. And of course, I'm like second guessing all of them. D is not good. It's thin and it's sharp and it goes away fast and it's just... And it tastes like young MGP. In the grand scheme of it still being an Elijah Craig barrel proof. Context, I know. C. C is very viscous and syrupy and very tobacco on the back end. Like Jim Beam tobacco, and this tobacco note reminds me of C917. I think I'm going to go C917 on this. I'm going to lock that in. I'm going to lock that in because it's such a unique note on that I'm going to go C917. Amy, would you believe me if I told you one of them is not ECBP? The only one I would believe is Glass D. And I got to see if I would believe that. No, I would not believe you. And it is, I did check the color, but profile-wise, it just feels like the worst possible barrels you could pick, but still Elijah Craig barrel proof. Joe says, before you reveal, rank them. Okay, on to B. B is just balanced. This is just a balanced nose. Man. See the nose, it's like it's good, but it hits you so hard. You know, there's so much there. The ethanol, which also tells me that it has to be an older batch, because those older batches are the only ones that hit this hot with a dusty note to them. So B. B just feels so much lower proof, especially on the front of the palate. And it's very fruity, which is like a 2019 batch thing for me. Amy, have some of these been open for a long time? Like, when I say a long time, I mean like multiple years. Because I'm getting a feeling from a few of these that they have these weird notes to them that I don't recognize, and it could totally just be me. But they feel like they've been, like, possibly B and C have been open for a really long time. Curious what you say. All right, I got to try A. Amy says, no, not open that long. Okay. Weird. I'm getting these weird notes on B and C. Reminds me, actually, I talked about that earlier, that, what bottle was it on tonight? Oh, the Rebecca Creek sample I tried. That weird chemical note. I'm getting that on B and C. I don't know what it is. If it's like something in my taste buds that have changed. Because I'm finding it on an increasing number of whiskeys, and it's kind of frightening me. Two were fresh cracks. Oh my God. I think A is probably my favorite. This nose, it is more intense than B. B is like sour fruits. I have to just go B519 on that. But A I think is, there are three batches that come to mind. A117, A119, C919. Those come to mind. The sleeper batches in here that could shock me are the 2018 batches. Those are the ones where it's like I'm not as familiar. And a lot of them straddle this really fine line, this really balanced profile of dustiness, fruit notes, and like dark oak tobacco leather. Those are the sleepers. A's nose is impeccable. That's A. Let's go to C. C feels higher proof now. What is happening in my life? I promise I'm going to be done in like 5 minutes, guys. Amy, I take back all the shit talk. Okay. C is nuttier than A. B is fruit balanced dusty. A is the sleeper, which means it's probably 2018. D, I cannot get this MGP crap out of my nose. All right. I think I'm going to have to call it. I think I'm going to have to call it. A is the only one that I'm like having a hard time with. All right, Amy. Last one. B just has so much butterscotch to it that I don't believe right now it's B519. I said it could be B520 earlier, then I went to B519. Both of those are lower proof or drink lower proof. But I also have a weird inclination that it could be C917. I don't know why. I thought C was C917. I also said earlier it could be C922. Okay, let's do this. Let me give you my first impression guesses versus where I ended up. Okay, so on glass A, my first, and I'm going to reveal these as I go. Wait, quickly let me rank them. I did forget to do that. Right. Well, that's easy. A, B, C, D. So let's go through it. Okay, let's start with D then. Let's go least to favorite. D, my first impression guess was B523. I then said this could be like an A121, B521, but I'm sticking with B523. Woo! Look at that. Come on. That's a confidence builder. This is probably only going to go downhill from there. All right. Glass C. Tell me it's not A123. I didn't guess that either time, but I'm not changing my answers, I promise. After knowing that could influence things. First impression guess, C922. I then said that this could be C917. And I don't know which one I stand with. I never really decided on this one. So I'm going to go with C917. Okay, yeah. This was a tough one. B518. Well, this is going to screw things up as we go down the row. But B518, which is a great batch, but it's hot on the nose, like really hot, and it takes away from the whiskey. Yeah. The palate's great, but the nose is not. And you know what's funny about that? Is my only tell when I've done side-by-sides with A118 and B518 has been that balance of them. A, to me, felt more balanced, and B felt unbalanced to me. Okay. On to B. Yeah. And I said first B520 because it felt underproof. It felt butterscotchy. Then I went to B519 because it really felt underproof and had this kind of fruitiness to it. I'm gonna stick with B519. Shit. Amy, how long has this been open? I like that fruitiness is that 919 or that 2019 fruitiness. How long is this? I can't believe that proof. This one drank the easiest out of all of them except for that crappy B523. But once I got B519 in my head, I couldn't get the 2019 out of my head because of that fruitiness. Wow. And you know what sucks about this is that I rated this second because I thought it was underproof and I just assumed in my head it had to be 520 or 519 because I couldn't imagine C919 would drink like this. My favorite batch, well, I love A117 selfishly, but A117 and C919 in my mind are tied for first. And so to rank this second to whatever A is pisses me off because I did it based on, again, I got to stop bottle guessing in my head and hedging my bets that way. That sucks. But tonight, A won. And I said A was A119 first, then I changed it to B518, just like a random guess because I couldn't place it. Let me smell it one more time. If this is C917, Amy, I'm going to be like upset and sad. But I would go with the one I felt better about, which was A119. A120. So I suck on this. I did get the fact that this was a 2019, and I do think those have a profile. The C919, the B519, the A119. I do think they have this particular fruitiness to them. I feel good that I recognize that in B. I feel good that I nailed Glass D. I absolutely sucked on Glass C. The only saving grace would be to know my 2018s better, or to know that 518 is like a weirdly hot batch on the nose. I didn't know either of those things, so I got to eat that. And then A is a complete shock to me. A120 is a batch I'm the least familiar with out of that year, and that's a really tough batch. I like it a lot, and I ranked it the highest tonight, you know. This is awesome. This was great training. Amy says C919 was a fresh crack. Oh, that just proves how amazing that batch is. Sheesh. I cannot believe that, Amy. I'm so glad I have 2 or 3 more of those in my basement. Wow. Well, thanks for sending this, and sorry everybody for sucking terribly. At least I called B523, which is, I'm telling you, that is god-awful Elijah Craig barrel proof. I'm sorry. I remember when that came out and people were like, look, I just think there's a narrative arc about whiskey reviews on YouTube and elsewhere. It's like, people love to hype things. Everybody likes an underdog story. Elijah Craig hasn't been very good for a long time. Everybody wants to hype the next batch and be the first person to hype the next batch to be like, no, I recognized it first. I really believe there's an element of that within what's going on here when people put out reviews. And likewise, I think that goes the other way. It's like people love to be the first one to hate on a batch. So, you know, B523 for me, though, has always just been not good. But I remember when the reviews came out of some people saying, oh, this is defying the age statement and this and that. No, it's not. It's defying it because it feels even younger than 11 years, 7 months, whatever it is. It's not good. 11 year, 5 months, whatever it is. That is not good. These other 3 are banger whiskeys. B518 is hot on the nose. C919 is literally perfectly balanced and drinks 15 proof points under. And A120 hits you with a little more heat than C919 with a little less flavor. And that's why I chose it tonight. But it has more butterscotch. Yep, and less fruit. And B518 had more nuttiness. Wow. Yeah, Amy, that's a good way of putting it. It is okay whiskey, but not okay Elijah Craig Barrel. It tastes to me, for some reason, in this flight, I don't know why, it is tasting to me like a barrel-proof 8-year MGP bourbon with that bright vanilla buttercream type note. I don't know why. It's like white cake that I get on like 4-year whiskeys. Tim, I have not tried Disco 11. I haven't even tried 10 actually. So I am planning on grabbing 11. I've heard only amazing things about it. So if you see it, what is the price point of those? 140 now? 160. If you find it at SRP or $10, $15 over, I would buy it because I'm just hearing great things about that whiskey. Okay, guys, I think Matt Porter was going to go live tonight, do a late stream. He might be on right now, actually. Let me see. Not exactly sure. If he is, we should all jump over there. Yeah, he is live. I don't know how long he's been on there. Wow, he's doing his 4-year anniversary tonight late. That's crazy. Dude, he could have milked that all the way to the bank, I feel like. Anyways, I'll jump over there and beg him to send me the link so we can hang out. Maybe. I don't know. This was awesome. Tonight was a lot of fun. Thank you for being here for this just anxiety-ridden flight from Amy, which was so challenging and so fun for me in my brain, less fun on camera. Thank you, guys. And thank you all for super chatting and for supporting the channel. And the next 2 weeks I have off of performing, which is amazing. So you should be seeing some more content from me over the next 2 weeks in terms of just like regular reviews. The big projects, 13th Colony Double Oaked, I want to get 1 to 2 videos out there of like 5 whiskeys this or, you know, under $30 whiskeys that. I want to start getting into that in the next 2 weeks and trying that content, and 1 whiskey wear per week, and we'll just see where that leads us. So that's going to do it. Thank you. Cheers to the winners. Thank you, Amy, and everybody else. And I am going to wrap up with, that's the Kings County, which is awesome. What is this? That smells not great. What are we going to end with? Here. Fresh glass. Let's do something cool. Let's do the Remus. Why not the Remus? 1337 or Elite Top Gun says, thanks for opening up to us, man. Cheers, dude. I am unfortunately an open book. For better or worse, guys. Cheers. Thank you, Guy, and congrats on the win. And I'll see you next week, and I'll see you on some videos before next week. Next Thursday night, just confirming, we are good for a stream. We are not good for a stream on the 9th of November. I'll be out of town, but that's cool. On the 2nd, we will definitely be live. Cheers. Thank you. Have a good night. Go check out Matt Porter, and I'll be over there too. All right. See ya.